Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. How are you all doing? Today's the day. We got Brigitte. She's here. I see her. And I'm going to make sure she's got her Twitter. And I know she's full of fuel too, so there'll be no excuse because she just fueled up. So I know that we're going to be good shape. We got her for a while. And just like Chris Sky, we're going to have her in the vehicle. So as real as it gets, Canadians to Canadians, and we're talking while we're working, while we're driving, we do what we can to get the messages and the information out to you. So I'm very pleased to have her here. I can see her there. She's ready to go. She's done this before. It's awesome. Good morning or good afternoon. Look at this. I'm still on my morning clock there, Azario, but good morning or good afternoon. I almost did it twice. Good afternoon, Azario. And hey, Ellen, nice to see you. I'm a little excited about this one. You know me, I don't get so nervous. But Bridget, I'm a little nervous here. This is going to be a lot of fun. And then, hey, Padge, thank you very much. You're here. You made it in time. You're going to do the chat for us. That's good. And wow, look at that group. Yeah, YouTube's growing quick. I can see that Rumble's filling up quick. And Facebook's filling up quick. So great. Thank you all for coming. Have you been watching the Twitter again? It is getting exciting. Take a little bit of a break this afternoon, but we got a lot of work to do this week because tomorrow we also have Chris Steering and Maggie Hope Braun. So I'm preparing for that. It's a double interview. We're going to have them both on, just like in the POEC. So that'll be a good time as well. We'll get an update and see how Maggie's doing since that little bomb scare in front of her house on Canada Day. We'll see if she's got some more information about that because I know that she just went up to the cabin right after that. So maybe we'll find out what happened there. But look, I am excited. She's here. She got a full tank of fuel. So let's get going. I'm going to bring Brigitte in right now. Hello, hello, hello. How you doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. So you're full of fuel. Are you at the station right now or?
I am. I'm just going to park for a little bit. I have a pretty big window on this load. So I'm just going to probably stay here the night. I said to my husband, I said, you know what? I got lots of time. So I think I'll just park early. And that way I don't have to try and drive and talk. There's been 2 accidents, very serious accidents. We've had air ambulance on the roadway twice in about 100 miles. So it's really cut my day off. Immensely.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah. So I should have made it home today, but I'm still 2.5, 3 hours from home. So I'm not going to get very much further today. I'll just go to bed after this, get up super early, drive in the dark when the 4-wheelers are sleeping and not causing accidents.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for making the time and hanging out with us, and I appreciate that. And thank you for hanging out, and then you'll do it in the morning. That's pretty cool. Whereabouts are you right now? Are you headed up through the States, or are you in Canada?
Yeah, I'm in Sydney, Ohio.
Okay, so you head back to Ontario when you say home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just letting everybody know whereabouts you are, and that you have a trucker's life. That's what this episode's about. So to be able to talk with you, we had to, whenever you are available, we can get you, and that will be in the truck sometimes. So that's pretty cool.
Most times, yeah.
Yeah. So most times, so you're literally a trucker's life all the time.
Yeah. Before COVID hit, I had gone 4.5 times around the earth. That year, and that year, 289 days away.
Oh my goodness! Can you let us all know? Is it round or is it flat? You've been around it 4 times. So.
I've gone up and down. I've gone left and right. I haven't fallen off yet. So I'm thinking if it was flat, I would have fallen off. And I've gone from California, but I mean, I'm only doing one continent. Although I've flown to another continent, but it really makes no sense if the sun comes. I mean, does the sun just kind of hit the curb and come up? Or I don't know. I think that's really silly. But that's just my personal opinion.
Too much math for a podcaster. I don't know. But I'm going to take that as gospel now. Bridget said it is round. So we can now settle that now. That's awesome.
Apparently, I'm a scientist. Well, I did watch Bill Nye. So there you go.
I remember watching him a lot. And in the last few years, he's kind of changed his attitude too. That broke my heart.
Weird. Yeah.
There's a few people have done that to us in the last few years, haven't they?
Yeah, there's been some people that have been like, whoa, I really like them. And then it's like, whoa, dude, what happened? Did you fall? Did you take some really bad drugs? Like, I don't know what happened, but I wish you the best. And yeah, it's just, I won't be following you anymore.
Yeah, no, there's a few actors and athletes and stuff like that. But anyways, we're here about Brigitte, and I really want to get down to it because I got so many questions for you, Brigitte. Um, can we start with a
Well,
little bit early? Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to
I
say, can
just
we
don't
start
want
a
it to
little?
be negative. I want to
No, no,
stay
no,
on the
no.
positive. I've been working on that train for a little bit. So,
No, no, no. We're here to learn about you, and you can bring up whatever you want to bring up. That's fine with me. But
okay.
before you became a trucker, who was Brigitte? And I don't want to go all the way back to the little days. But what made you become a trucker? Like, was it in the family? Was it something you were just always attracted to, or was it just a job that you applied to and you enjoyed it and you kept doing it? What made you become a trucker?
Well, I didn't know it was in the family, but it is in the family.
Okay.
My uncle has been a longtime trucker, but when I knew my uncle as an adult, I always knew he worked for the city, not as a trucker.
Mhm.
Um, but I became a trucker because I was driving school bus for 10 years prior, and I was getting out of a bad relationship, and it gave me a place to sleep. It gave me money in my pocket, and yeah, so I guess I traded my ex-husband for a truck.
It's a good trade so far. I guess you're happy now. You got a smile right now.
Excellent trade. It has cost me far less.
I guess so. And you can go through a couple of trucks and it doesn't bother anybody if you need to, right?
Well, now it would, because I don't own it. My current husband owns it, but I mean, the paperwork's in his name. It's not mine. But yeah, I when it breaks down, it costs far more than an ex-husband,
Oh
but not
my.
as much as a divorce. So
Okay, that's fair enough. So you almost got into it as a necessity. So you had work, you needed a place to stay, you kind of need to get out of that
yeah,
relationship. It gave you
and
some
my
good
kids were grown.
distraction. Oh, they
Yeah,
were grown at this point. Okay.
yeah,
So that so from bus driver to that, and this was a school bus driver, so you're up early
yeah,
and dealing with those responsibilities. Now,
yes.
take me on like your first big trip. So you got your license, whatever it is for the truckers right now, and you went on your first cross-border haul. Where was that to, and what did you take?
This is actually the funniest story ever. And I remember it like yesterday. Um, I get out of training, so you've got 10 um, 10 days of training at that time. It wasn't very much.
Hmm.
And during my training, I had fallen off the top bunk. I mean, this shit only happens to me, but I fell off the top bunk, and I had seriously damaged my left leg, and we were
Oh,
driving stick, so I couldn't shift. And they didn't teach you how to float. They just told you how to use the clutch. So here I am. I've got it all bandaged up, and I'm using it, but it keeps swelling. So now I'm off the truck with my trainer, and I've got my first load. They send me to North Carolina. Everything I had done to that very point was on flat land, pretty much. You really
okay.
didn't have to shift while driving. Once you were in go mode, you were in go mode.
Hmm.
Um, but doing fancy gap meant I really needed to be 100% solid on downshifting at the right time. And they routed me through what's called the 219. So if anybody's a trucker, they're like, oh, the 219. There's no place really to stop. It's up and down, up and down. Um, and it took me 3 days to get to North Carolina from Ontario.
And now, what does it take you? Like an
A day and a
afternoon,
half,
day and a
day and
half.
a
Okay,
half,
so it took
depending
you
on traffic, right?
twice as long then. And was that because of the
Right.
mountains and the hills and the valleys that you were kind of
And I
taking
couldn't
your time on that?
shift. Yeah, I couldn't shift.
Right.
And it's also the first time I blocked the Canadian border.
Oh, so that was a foresight of what was to come.
Ah,
We should have paid attention then.
right. Like Queenston Lewiston at the time had the roadway go through where you had to back into the docks. And when I
Hmm.
got to the gate to go into the US, the guy had said to me, he said, you need to go into x-ray. And I'm like, cool, do I have to go in and get searched? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, that's not going to be a good idea, I can't back up. And he goes, don't worry, honey, you'll be fine. And I was like, no, seriously, honestly, I can't back up. It's like 3 days on the job without my trainer. I can't back up. And he's like, you'll be fine. Oh yeah, 45 minutes. I closed that roadway. Guys were screaming on the radio,
Yeah.
right? And it was this wonderful Polish man that came and stood on my side steps. And he said, okay, honey, I want you to put your hand at the bottom of your steering wheel, and I want you to turn it the way you want your trailer to go. Just because it ends up going with the trailer. So instead of opposite. So it
Right.
was a great learning experience, but both CBSA was upset and the truckers, but that was the first unintentional time I ever blocked a border.
Maybe they kept a note. Maybe it came back later.
I don't know, but I've never blocked a border since. So
No. And so North Carolina was your first trip, and what was the load? What were you carrying?
rolls of paper, big rolls of
Okay.
paper. So they're about as tall as I am and about twice as wide as me. I guess that's a fair explanation.
Fair enough. So it's for printing presses and stuff like that, that kind of thing.
Yeah, newsprint. Yeah.
Nice. So that was exciting. So it took you twice as long, but you got some good experience. You blocked a border. You had to work
I
with that
did.
leg that was all swelling. And what's
Yeah.
floating the gears? What does that mean?
So instead of using your clutch, the third pedal, you
Mhm.
actually just take with your RPMs at the right RPM, you can actually move your stick shift into the gear without ever touching the pedal. You only
That requires
should,
experience.
yeah, it does come with experience. And I actually learned how to do it with in Toronto traffic, because Toronto traffic is a great way to learn to upshift and downshift without the clutch. And I mean, if you scratch, you scratch, just don't jam it in there and break stuff. But yeah, that was 8 years ago, and I'm far better today, unless I'm really upset, and then I can hear some scratching going on.
Oh, we don't want to do too much damage. You're going to have to replace that. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Well, now that we have your first load, it was some paper down to North Carolina. What was
Yeah.
your most exciting load, other than maybe the border stuff? What was your most exciting load that you've had?
Most
Something that happened.
exciting load. Wow.
Did
What's
you ever
my
lose
most
a load
exciting
or
load?
anything?
Oh no.
Okay.
Haven't done that. Haven't dropped a load. You know, most of my loads, most of my career has been in reefer. And that's not the stuff you smoke, people. It's
I was about
not.
to ask. No, you continue on that one.
No, reefer is frozen or cooled product. So that's
refrigerated.
pretty,
So,
refrigerated freight. So we call
okay.
those reefers.
Okay.
And I still find it hard to sleep without the reefer running in the back. I was contemplating putting a reefer unit on my house so I could sleep better, but I don't know.
You got used to the sound.
Yeah, and the rumble, the feel within the truck. And I know other guys hate it, but I was so used to it. And I just loved being in the farmers' fields, working directly with farmers.
Mm.
So I think that's the best part of my job was when I was carrying reefer freight. It was dealing directly farm to table. That was best.
So you went
Yeah.
around to the farms, collected the loads, and brought it into the distributor or wherever it was in the cities, I guess.
Yeah, I would pick up sweet potatoes in Mississippi from SMP. Miss you guys if you're watching.
Mm.
And I'd ask them if I could buy a box. They always threw an extra box on. So I always got
Nice.
an extra box of sweet potatoes. And I mean, I just love those guys. I'd watch their kids while they were loading me and stuff. I had a great time there. And watermelons right out of the field. You'd see the school bus that's all chopped up with no roof, and they're throwing the watermelons in, and then they take them and load them onto your truck. So it was kind of cool, very interesting stuff.
Do you
For me,
transport
anyway.
animals animals at all?
No,
Nope.
no, no, no.
And
I
nothing. Nope. And then any
no.
hazardous materials and stuff like that?
I have done hazmat. I just got my TDG, which is a tanker endorsement.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because the carrier I'm with does a lot of hazmat. So I just got that. It's a nothing endorsement. I mean, they make a big deal out of it, but it's literally a $40 course that takes about 6 hours, and I don't think it's valid. I don't know. I think there's so much better training that could be done than this TDG, but yeah, that's just my
So,
personal opinion. I don't think it's enough.
so you're a fan of regulations and government interference in your business?
No,
Oh, right.
I no, no, I fight them all the time. I like paper. I was really good at writing paper. I got taught from some really good guys. Um, and I remember hitting a scale in California, and my logbook wasn't filled out, and I dropped it loose leaf on the floor, scattered it all up, picked it up, handed it to him. While I was leaning over the seat, I was filling in the last few lines of that of that paper sheet I hadn't filled in.
Yeah.
And just to make it accurate. So when he came back for the paper, he goes, "Oh, you're missing this date and this date." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sure it's here. You saw my book fell apart." And I just
Right.
scattered it up and handed it back out to him. But I mean, I wasn't into the 2 and 3 logbooks. That was a little bit too much for me, but I could mess a logbook just a little bit. So yeah, I did like
Well,
those
fair enough.
days. Yeah.
Fair enough. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the evening where you made a video that we all kind of watched. So where were you coming from, if you don't mind? So you were on a load coming home. So you have an
Yeah.
empty trailer and you were just coming home at this point?
No, we always come home loaded. Well, we try to always
Okay,
come
so you go
home
both
loaded.
sides. Okay.
Yeah. At that point, I was driving. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, it was November, so I was driving for myself. It probably wasn't very far. It was Midwest to back to Ontario. Yeah.
Only a trucker says that. Not very far, Midwest to Ontario.
Yeah. Hop, skipping a jump, man.
Yeah, 1,000 kilometers, you're fine. Yeah. Right. So, but it's true, right? The only trucker says that just around a corner past Wyoming, down by Tennessee.
Oh,
So,
Wyoming's a nightmare in the winter. I don't do that. No. I'll take 40 all day long.
yeah, straight through there. So you're coming up and it's late, right? Because it was dark or it was late in the day.
Yeah.
And yeah. So you came up and did you have any warning that there was going to be anything going on, or could kind of take me through the first or the 10 minutes before you got that news? Did you know you
Um,
would have to do something?
I was already having anxiety crossing the border because I had a couple of issues a couple of times. The first one was in February of 21. I had claimed the pair of jeans I had bought from Walmart. I had just avoided a wreck on I-40 in an ice storm. And so I stopped there for the night because we had a flash freeze. It was really bad. I bought a pair of jeans. I claimed them when I got back. And the female agent went up one side of me and down the other. You're not supposed to leave your cab. You're supposed to go from one point A to point B and do not get out. And I was like, what do you think? Fairies fuel my truck? Who walks my
Mm-hmm.
dog? How do I take a shower? Where do I go to the bathroom? I looked at her and I went, you're crazy. It's not happening. It can't happen. And I went to California and back. So it's a 10-day rounder with a reset. And she's like, I'm going to make you go to secondary. I'm like, whatever. Okay, fine. So I dealt with
Mm-hmm.
it then. That was a brutal experience the first time. Then the second time I had an issue. It was again another female officer giving me a hard time. How come you don't have an exemption letter? Because you walk into any walk-in and they say we're not issuing them. So how do you want me to get an exemption letter? Right. And then it was there were little incidents here and there, but the second one in February of 21 and then the November Those were the two big ones that caused a lot of issue. And I was just anxious going across the border at that time, dealing with the agents. Some of them were pretty cool, just ask you a few questions. You had to reveal information you don't want to, and they would let you go and go, okay, I understand. But that day, that guy was just, what was I supposed to do? My visor had broken. I was trying to, I was trying, and it was just not good enough. Nothing was good enough. So he slammed the door and he sent me into secondary, telling me that I would enjoy my time with the Windsor police. And to me, that was a threat to my personal security.
Yeah.
At that time. And then when I got there, they were telling me they were going to take my trailer unless I complied. They were going to take my truck. They were going to take my load. They were going to take my dog. I was going to jail. I mean, it was just horrid over a mask, not wearing a mask across the border. They weren't even yelling at me for a vaccine mandate. They were yelling at me for a piece of cloth on my face. It was, it was ludicrous. Ludicrous.
So you're in secondary now. They're making these threats. You're standing outside your truck. You're not sure what's going on. You take out your phone and you start recording. And you just basically wanted to say what you wanted to say. Now, did you intend to have it go out, or were you just basically doing like a diary and you just wanted to say it, and a couple people might see it, and that was it?
I think it was a scream for help.
Okay, so you were asking for help then?
I was asking for help. I remember that night being in there. I was in there for over 2.5 hours. So you're trying to figure out what's happening to you. Like, the anxiety is just building. And I mean, if anybody's ever been through a situation which is stressful, the not knowing the outcome just makes you a little bit more stressed, and your head starts going and you're like, oh my God, what are they going to do? Right? Am I ever going to be seen again? You just get so worked up. Mm-hmm. And, that night was extremely tough. I was sending messages to Rebel. I was sending messages to Babber. I was sending messages to Randy Hillier. I was sending messages to everyone I could think of. I had talked to my husband on the phone. There was a Wiley transport driver that saw the tears, saw how over the moon I was. And he came over and he started talking to me, just at the side of the truck, honey, it's going to be all right. You're going to be just fine. I mean, there were just a lot of good people that ended up stepping in the way. And, it's just what it was. And when CBSA, Health Canada, PIAC, when they recalled me, because they called me twice, when they called me the second time, they said they decided they were not issuing the fine. And that's probably because I told them, you go ahead and issue the fine. Do what you got to do, because at that point it had de-escalated a little bit. They weren't going to send me to jail. They were going to just give me a fine. And I said, you got to do what you got to do. But by tomorrow morning, I will be on the phone with every newspaper person I can find, every MP, every MPP, everyone I can find to tell my story that you are going after a woman who is a victim of violence, forcing on a mask when there are mask exemptions. And I said, if that's what you got to do, you go ahead and do it. But I am done. And I am so done with this crap. And yes. When they called me back, they had said, we're just going to give you a warning. And I'm like, written warning, fine warning, what kind of warning? And they just know that you've been warned. Whatever that means. Wow. Yeah. So, but I mean, it wasn't de-escalated. It was still, it was to a bit, but who knew what would happen the next time I crossed the border?
Correct.
Each time it had gotten worse. Right. So when there was an issue, it had gotten worse. When there was no issue and the guys were just like opening the door, grabbing your paperwork through a slit this big because they didn't want to see you or breathe on you or whatever. Those guys were okay. I didn't mind that. I mean, like, cool. You don't want to see me. I don't want to see you either. Just stamp my paperwork and let me go. But I mean, it was ridiculous. They're wearing masks, no gloves. I just had my fast card in my mouth and I hand it to him. He's touching it. Like, come on. It was just ridiculous.
The science was weird. It still is weird about this. So you make that you have that conversation. You get the phone call. The second phone call, they say, "We're going to give you a warning. You've been warned. We're warning you. You're warned. It's on your record. You're warned." They're doing all of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff to you, and then you drive away. Well, first, did you collect yourself? Did you have to stay for a bit and then drive away, or what ended up happening there?
No, I needed to leave, but I was still pretty much hysterical. I was still not right. I didn't have a chance to calm down. I was still not right. And I wanted out of there because if I stayed, who knew what they would do to me? Right.
Right.
And I mean, I was still, my eyes were swollen. The tears were still all over my face. And I couldn't stop crying. I don't know why I couldn't, but I just couldn't. And so I drive out of there. I am not in right mind. I'm not, but I call my husband to let him know I have been released. Okay. So you don't have to come and get bail money tonight. You don't have to pick up the dog. You don't have to do nothing. I'm fine. You don't have to make arrangements. I think he was like on the other end of the continent too at the time. So, but I went in and I'm driving along, and there's, exit 14, there's exit 56, there's Commerce, I think that's 48. But I'm talking to him on the phone. He goes like, "You really need to park. You're not really making a whole lot of sense.
Right.
You're really upset." And he goes, "What do you mean by you're done?" And I'm like, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't. I just can't." And he kept saying to me, "What do you mean by you're done?" And I'm like, "I'm just done." I had no explanation for what that meant. I was just done. And he says, "Okay, well, you need to pull off. So go pull in at 14." And said, I just passed it. He goes, "Okay." So he talked to me for a little bit more, trying to calm me down. See, look, it's okay. They let you go.
Yeah.
Went past 48. I said, "Look, I got this load. It's got to get there." And he goes, "No, it doesn't have to get there. You need to." I think I was delivering in the GTA. By the time I got to London, which is where I thought I could stop, because I had just passed everything. I really wasn't paying attention. I went into London to park, and the lot was full. There wasn't a spot anywhere. There wasn't even spots along the side of the road where a lot of guys park and we get tickets. There was nothing. So that upset me. On top of being upset, now I'm upset I don't have parking. I mean, it was a nothing thing, really. We never have parking anyway. We're always looking for that hole somewhere. But that just brought that everything was, it was just an emotional night. So my husband's trying to calm me down. He goes, "It's okay. It's okay. Look, hey, look, 187, 185, you've got the Husky. Go there. There's always parking there. Just relax." So on my way out, I did not see the minivan that was coming on the left. I didn't see them. And for whatever, the grace of God, if you believe in God, higher power, whatever, I missed them by inches. Like inches. It could have been a family of 4. Like, I have no idea who was in that van. But for the grace of God, I didn't hit them. They didn't get smushed. And I ended up, at that point, you kind of have this shock. Okay, you're not doing okay. You need to park. You can't do this anymore. And I went to the next exit to park at the Husky, and that was the end of my night. But I sat there, and he's still trying to talk to me. I'm like, I gotta go. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to discuss it anymore. And I went to my bank accounts trying to change over the beneficiaries. You couldn't do that online. Everything I wanted to do that night, I think I truly believe I wanted to say goodbye to everybody that night, because I couldn't do it anymore. So, yeah, it's still a bad night. I don't think I'll ever forget it.
No, and I can see it's still there. Okay, so we're going to take you past that night now. So you have this video out. Your husband talked you to the Husky. You took your time. You took a breath. You took a sleep. Collected yourself by the grace of God. You made it through that night. You woke up the next morning. Did you call your husband? Was that the first thing you did?
Well, I always wake up. That's the one thing I always wake up to. He's such a great man. Good morning, beautiful. That is my morning message every morning. Um, he is an amazing man. And he's like, I love you. Everything's fine. You're going to be okay. And I
Yeah.
get that every morning. If it didn't come, I would be like, what's wrong? What happened to him? Was he in an accident? Yeah, like my mind would probably race because I would be like, I never not get that message.
No kidding.
So
Yeah. So that
yeah,
came on time, and that was your wake up.
yeah, yeah.
Good. So you got yourself ready. You got your call. Did you float out of there, or did you use your fifth or third pedal?
Well, to start, I used the third pedal, but
Okay.
yeah, no, I did get in and do my load, finish that off, and I remember making arrangements to go pick up um, my funeral package on the way into Toronto. I've never picked it up. Oddly enough, it's still sitting there.
Sorry, what
I've
is
never
this
picked it up.
funeral package? This is your personal package for your funeral?
Yeah,
You want to tell me
yeah.
about why you're picking one up?
I haven't. It's still there. Uh, but I made those arrangements that day driving into the GTA.
Okay, Bridget. And that's why you're
Yeah.
checking your bank accounts too and doing that. Okay. Well, so now we're driving down the road. You didn't pick up your funeral package. You didn't make the beneficiary changes because you now got your phone call and you used your third pedal. Now you're floating down the highway. You're headed to your GTA drop off. Was
Yeah.
that kind of a normal drive for you at this point? You kind of collecting yourself, focusing on getting this drive done, or were you still thinking about the night before?
No, I'm because on my way into the GTA is when I had called the funeral home and was making the arrangements. Like I think they returned my call from the night before.
Okay.
And we were making funeral arrangements. They must have thought I was crazy because I'm like, which hurts less? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, does burning really hurt? Like, do we really know if it hurts? Because, when people die, they can't come back and tell us if it hurts or not. It's always been a weird thing for me, death. And she's just like, well, I'm sure it doesn't. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, well, what is really the thing we were talking about cost? And I think it came up to, I decided cost was probably more effective. And yeah, so she has all the arrangements and whatever it is that I decided at that moment. I don't know. Maybe I should go back later when I'm sick or something and make sure that, when that time comes that those aren't weird kind of requests.
Yeah. Okay. I would, yeah, follow up with that and get her done. Now, when you're saying burning, you're talking about cremation, I would assume there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
I always found death like a weird subject to talk about. And, I mean, I've gone through it a couple of times, with my grandparents, my aunt, and, my dad. And they always had their wishes done. They knew what they wanted. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay. Now you're making those calls. You're getting through the GTA. I'm going to take you to where you drop things off, and then you start to head home. Did you go home after that?
uh yeah, I think I went home for a couple of days. Yep, I did. I went home for a couple of days. And for some reason, Demon that day had pulled his nail off on the truck.
This is your dog,
Yeah, Demon was
Demon.
my husky. Yeah, he pulled his nail off because we had lost. I have like a little piece of carpet on the stairs so that they don't get
Okay.
their paws put into the holes on the running boards. And he had snapped his nail off. So I went home and babied him for a few days and tried to make sure, got him looked at. So I didn't have time to look at me
That
and
was a
how
good
I was
distraction.
feeling. He was an amazing dog. And, anytime that night, he was with me the whole time. He didn't leave me. So, yeah.
And it's a sweet dog too. I can tell in your voice the way you talk about him. Is he still with you?
He actually died the weekend I went to the POEC.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he died right in the truck. So he died where we work and where we played. And yeah, so that was a rough morning because it was the Friday. We were going to leave the Saturday to go to Ottawa. and my husband was coming in. He didn't make it in the Friday night, and he died Saturday morning. So while we were parked waiting for my husband. So
I'm sorry about that.
yeah, I felt like a country song going into the POEC. Like my dog just died, and I've got no lawyer, and
Well, you had the
rescue
paralegal
me.
though. I remember her.
Yeah, they came in literally 3 weeks before the before the POEC. I talk about scramble. I mean, like we really had 3 sessions to work on stuff, and I had no idea what we were doing, and I had to find files, and what a mess! What a mess!
Well, I'm an Ontario paralegal, so we were kind of rooting for her when we saw her there, because we don't normally get any limelight as paralegals, so it was kind of cool to see her there. But I'll get to the POEC shortly. So now
Right.
that you're back home, you're taking care of the dog, broke the nail, good distraction. Your
Yeah.
husband come home at this time, and you guys are back together?
I don't think so. I think I had to head back out. I honestly don't remember. It was such a dark time. I remember us being back together probably around the 1st of December, and that was the 17th. So no, I probably would have gone out and done another run and then came back. So
Okay.
yeah, probably something short.
Now, at this time, your video is exploded by this time. So a lot of people have seen it, and you're probably getting a lot of messages of support and other stuff sent to you. Can you kind of take me through those few days after? Like, did you get a hold of Randy Hillier? We had him on the show. He's a good guy. Did you have to get a hold of him?
I've only talked once to Randy, and it was prior to this incident, actually. And he did touch base, and I was actually impressed because I called my MP. I called my MPP. I had called Babber. I had called, all these people, and nobody was getting back to me. And I'm thinking, is it the way I'm expressing what's happening? But Randy had called me the one time, and he had support for what I was talking about at that time. And I think it was just, mass mandates, just in general, and the fact that a female victim of violence people don't see as a disabled person or somebody that's affected by wearing them. And I don't think he disagreed because he was doing hugs. What was that? No More Lockdowns Canada, right? So
Something like that.
yeah, and the lockdowns were crazy. I mean, they're just crazy. Now, Roman's office did call. I have to say, my husband is my biggest advocate. Anytime something happens, my husband gets on the phone and starts calling everybody. It's like, don't you mess with my wife, And he's sweet about it, though. He's not like, I'm going to come blow up your office. He's like, this is not acceptable. So he touched base also with Roman's office, got a girl on the phone, and she did call me. They were planning on doing the same video they did for, I believe, the paramedic that had lost her job due to mandates or whatever. And it just never came to fruition. I think they were just bombarded by so much going on. And he had also called CBSA. I didn't want to cause a wave with CBSA. I was like, no, if I go and file a complaint, they're going to come after me. It's going to be on my record. Anytime I go through, they're coming for me. And my husband's like, no, what they did to you is wrong, and we're filing a complaint. So he filed a complaint. Then they told him I had to file a complaint. And then I did. And basically I was just told, like, suck it up.
Yeah. So nothing came of that complaint at all?
No, they were within their rights to do with what they did, apparently.
That's funny. Yeah, well, maybe we'll decide that in the future still, whether or not they had those rights. I don't think that question's really been answered. Yeah. So now you did or didn't get a hold of Chris Barber at this time?
No, not yet. It wasn't instant. I believe that time that we were home, like that 1st of December, I think that's also around the time that like Justin Trudeau was up there making noise, and I wanted to like destroy my TV and rip it off the wall, and I'm standing up and screaming at him. And that was like end of November, 1st of December area, around that time. And I stood up and I looked at my husband. I said, we need a convoy. And he looks at me and he goes, convoys never work. Truck drivers can't agree on, a red truck or a free cup of coffee. And I just looked at him and I went, we need a convoy. And I had no idea anybody was doing anything anywhere. It seemed so quiet. Like there was nobody doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
It would come up a certain group at a time. And I'm like, yeah, go get them, police officers. And they'd fail. Go get them, firemen. And they'd fail. And the nurses and doctors and the paramedics. And I was like, come on, guys, you got this. And everybody failed. And I was just like, we need a convoy at this point. We can't have any more. We're the biggest vehicle on the road other than, I don't know, maybe some weird oil digging machine that's probably, bigger than me.
Alberta's got a lot. Alberta's got a lot.
Yeah, I've seen some of those, and I have those crawlers and like they're massive. Yeah, like you need to climb up a building to get into them. But yeah, I mean, we're the biggest things on the road and we're very noticeable. So I just looked and I said, no, we need a convoy, and I was set on it. So in the month of December, sorry, I'm going to grab a swig of coffee. Yeah, in the month of December, I learned that TikTok wasn't about fluffy dogs and people jumping in cars and dancing. I learned it was a little bit more than that. And that if I used that little search bar at the top, that I could find truckers. And that's what I did. But before that, I thought it was just dogs and weird people jumping into cars. Like I really didn't know TikTok. And it was only because I was on a ban with Facebook. First time was 22 and the second time was like 35. So it ended up being something like 50 or 55 days of continuous ban. And that's why I went to TikTok. And it was all because I was telling the truth. I was like, why would you use reefers that had dead bodies with a deadly virus in it? Why would you put that back into service to carry our fruits and vegetables? Makes no sense to me.
I didn't even know that. That's incredible. So yeah, so the refrigerated vehicles, they were putting dead bodies in there because they were running out of space in morgues and stuff. And then you said they just put it right back
in New York.
Service.
Yeah. They waited till March. I believe it was March of 2021 in New York. FMCSA had said they could put those back into service. All they need to do is disinfect them. And I laughed. I friggin' bowled out laughed. Up in the roof of one of those, there's a plastic sheet with buttons all the way down where the air flows through. There's also, tons of circular tubing that the air goes through. How are you exactly going to, deodorize, disinfect that? You go take it apart. I thought if this was a deadly virus, so deadly, all those trailers would be burnt to the ground that had a body in it.
So that was your first suspicion that the death rate of this thing wasn't so violent. It wasn't so bad. So you're kind of getting suspicious about the whole narrative at that point?
Well, that, and they said Florida was closed and it never was. There was only one checkpoint on I-95, and that was part of my ban. I got yelled at for telling the truth that Florida's I-75, I-10, and I-8 were wide open. Go on in.
Yeah, and we heard about hospitals overflowing, but the hospitals themselves would say that's not happening. Please stop saying that. You're causing us problems. We heard stories like that all over the place. We had New York had that ship come in, right, to be that extra hospital because they were expecting to have so much. Never used it. We had a lot of weird stuff. I remember that time. It was complicated. But at that time,
do you remember that tent hospital in Toronto?
The tent hospital.
The tent hospital in Toronto.
No, I think I was in Alberta by that time. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was put up, I believe, outside Sunnybrook Hospital. And it was all fenced in. So I'm like, what is this for? Who's this for? I didn't see people in it.
So it was never used. So just put up to make people scared.
Yeah, I think it was definitely fear. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now I know when I was in the GTA, I was there for about 2 decades or so. Rolling trucks and slow rolls were a thing, especially around fuel and other stuff. So around the GTA, they would take the traffic and put it to a crawl by doing slow rolls and stuff like that. Is that kind of the idea that you were having when you said convoy, or you actually had something bigger in mind when you were thinking you need a convoy?
Oh no, it was much bigger what I had in my head. Much
Okay, so
bigger.
you
Yeah. In August of 2020, CBSA went on strike.
okay,
Okay. And they didn't give a crap about the truckers. They didn't care. So they, and I got caught up in this. I was a few hours, I had to wait for my clock to reset. So I was a few hours too late. They started their shutdown or slowing of the border traffic, which was really only truckers, or 2020 or 2021. I think it was 21 because they had a year where there was really no traffic, and I was pretty upset about that. But yeah, so 21, and so what they did was they slowed traffic. They, took their time. It would be 20 minutes at the window per truck. We had trucks sitting for 14 hours on the highway getting tickets for impeding traffic. Well, we can't move. We're in a lineup, right? No bathroom, no food, no water, nothing. While they
hmm
played their little games of crossing the border. And it was countrywide as far as I knew. I sat in it. My buddy was 14 hours. I was only 2.5, so I was kind of lucky. And he was 14 hours at the back. So I figured if we did this, slow traffic, not at one border, from one end of the country to the other, every border, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to cave to us, to talk to us, not necessarily take down all the mandates, but maybe some, like for us and the essential workers, the people they called essential,
hmm
right? Let us go back to work, and we'd be done in 24 hours. That was the original plan. Yeah. Across the country,
So
slow roll everywhere.
so did you have people lined up for that, or that was just the idea, and you're going to start reaching out by searching in TikTok for truckers?
For December, for the month of December, it was pretty much just my idea. That's
Okay.
that's where it was. I was putting it out on the truckers' feeds, Convoy 22, Convoy 22, Convoy 2022. Trying to get interest. It was just before Christmas, I believe. Chris and I first maybe made an exchange on his TikTok in the comments section. You know, it was a nothing thing. It was just a comment, but I was like, I got somebody that commented, and I
hmm
got a guy that has 69,000 followers, like, or 69K, whatever. Yeah, 69,000 followers. This guy, and I didn't look into him or how he spoke or what he did, and I didn't. This guy's listening. This guy
Right.
hears me. Um, and so I continued. I continued to put that on his TikTok, and on January 2nd is when he finally said yes, that he would do it. And the odd thing is, he also said, convoys never work.
Right. So he was
Yeah,
skeptical even as well, but he was.
he
Was
was.
it? Do you think your persistence, or was it your story, or was he having problems as well? Was he seeing other truckers complaining as well?
Well, he states that he's vaccinated, so that he caved to the pressure that was coming. So I don't know if it was personally, or maybe just pissed off that he had to do it. I don't know what his personal call was.
hmm
I do know, um, I do know that he may have heard some of my story. I may have told him while we were in conversation. I'm going to lose everything. There's a lot of us out here that are going to lose everything. This is crazy. Um, yeah, I had, and when I talk about it, I still have passion. I was very passionate about the idea. I was passionate about Canadians standing together. I was passionate about us doing this not just for us, but for everybody. I was passionate.
And at this time, you're in Ontario, but he's out in Alberta?
He was in Saskatchewan.
Oh, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, he's from he's Swift Current. Yeah.
Okay, well, they got some problems in their schools right now, by the way. Maybe we should talk to him about it. They have some indoctrination going on in Swift Current. Yeah.
Oh, we have some weird stuff going on too.
Yeah, it's all over the place, but they made some headlines just a couple weeks ago. But now I'm going to ask, how did the word get all the way out to Alberta, BC? Because that's kind of where we first started to roll the convoy, right?
No, it was Alberta, BC. Yes. Actually, while I was I think it was actually on the 2nd. I'd have to go back and check, but I reached out to Barracuda Barbie, who had posted that this guy Colin was doing stuff in BC. And I was like, well, why don't I hear about anything until I got an idea and I'm going to go with it. And it's set. And this guy had been rolling around BC with a bunch of people. I'm not sure exactly what they were doing, but he was rolling around BC. And I said, get me in touch with this guy. And his name was Colin. And she did. She got me in touch with Colin. And I talked to Colin. I sold him the idea. His video about our conversation is still on Rumble. And I sold him the idea, and he came to Ottawa, and he got a big group. I also talked to Teresa out in Alberta or in BC. She's like top-notch fighter out there. She's a huge freedom fighter out there. And she was ecstatic on the idea, the presentation, what we were planning. So, but every province was coming on board. Like when Chris came on board, he immediately brought in Manitoba with Joe and Dale, right?
Okay.
So now you've got Ontario, you've got Joe and Dale in Manitoba, you've got Chris in Saskatchewan, I got Teresa and Colin in BC, right? Alberta came in. We were making calls. I don't know if you've seen some of the TikToks where I'm like, hey, we got this. Come on, where are you, Quebec? Like, where are you guys, right? And I'm like, come on, I'm egging them on. I'm like, wait, you don't want to be the only ones, right? Like, you gotta come. This is growing big, right? Yeah. I've taken some of those courses, but I won't.
Well, you're talking about selling it to people, and you're trying to egg them on. You got the gift of gab there.
I did. I kind of do, yeah.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, so I'm just like, come on, and Chris is doing the same thing, and he's riling people up. I mean, he's really good at that. And with his big fan base, they were like eating it up. Yeah, let's go, right? And I mean, Chris is very good at what he does. He's a troll. He's good at it. He's had years of practice, and he knows how to get people incitedly emotional, right? So he's really good at it, and that worked hugely in our favor. And it wasn't until the 12th that I got a message from the Women's Federation of Trucking, where I see James Bowder. I don't know who this guy is. And Pat King, I learned about through James, but I get this message that he's doing a convoy, and it's exactly the same time as our convoy. And I'm like, oh, hell to the no. I'm like, Shelly, give me 10 minutes, I'll call him. Right? Next thing I know, I'm being sold by James Bowder that we need to take it to Ottawa. I'm like, you know what, dude? I don't know, right? Like, I think our plan is better.
So at this time, your plan was the borders, was to slow roll the borders. His plan was
every border. Yeah, his plan was to go to Ottawa with his bear hug. And, I'm like, well, my group is, and we'd already grown Ontario. We had Harold and Tim. We had Ben. We had Dave. We had Mike. I mean, Ontario was huge. We had a lot of people call them road captains. I'd like to say independent leaders, because they they were responsible for their area, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I was like, you know, guys, I'm not going to tell you how to do this. You're all independent owner operators, you know, just stay within the guidelines of being safe. That's all I
Right.
ask.
Right.
I just want everybody safe. And so everybody could tweak it whichever way worked for them, which I think was a big bonus because everybody could feel like they were a part of it, a
And they
huge part
owned
of it.
that piece of it. Yeah,
And
and
they
that matters.
owned that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
Von Mills is owned by Dave, you know, Belleville is owned by Mike, you know, and Cornwall by Andrew, you know. So, I mean, I think that that gave them even more purpose
Mm-hmm.
to be successful at what they were doing. So, and I liked that part of it, that everybody felt like they were right in there because they were. There shouldn't be no hierarchy. We should have all been equals, right?
It was a
That's what
collective.
we
It was
are
once
on the
everybody made it
road.
work. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we're on the road. So why wouldn't we be that for this? And I guess I'm just naive, but whatever. So
All right. So James sells you on a big bear hug around Ottawa, and you start
yeah,
thinking, "Oh wow, this guy knows how to pitch as well." You got some
no,
competition.
I was like, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I said, but I'll let the guys decide because it wasn't, like I said, I felt we were a group of people working together,
Right.
not any one person making a decision. And so I put it to the group, and it was Joe Jensen out of Manitoba that spoke up first. And he goes, I guess we're going to Ottawa. And I was like, well, button down your hatches because this just got a whole lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And yeah, that was like the turning point to it not being spread out. But I did ask that on February 9th, we turn back around if we haven't got any headway, that for my birthday, we turn back around and spread back out on around the country so that we could have a bigger impact. And we would have.
Okay.
I still feel today that if we would have blocked every border, every port, every, not blocked, I say that word, but it's not blocked, slowed,
Interfered with and slowed down.
yeah, um, you know, we would have had a bigger impact and they would have had to talk to one of us. I still feel that way. I think that the trip to Ottawa was the biggest mistake. But
Well, you're
that's my
you're assuming the
personal.
narrative. Yeah, you're assuming the narrative would have been working though. Like you would have been able to slow roll, and they would have called it slow roll.
See,
I'm
that there's
pretty
my
sure they would have called it.
naive, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure they would have called it a blockade, even if it was just a slow roll, because that's what they ended up
Right.
doing,
Yeah.
right? Because even in Windsor, there
Yeah.
was a ambulance lane and stuff was getting through, and they called it complete blockage, even though the tunnel's
Yeah.
open, the ferry's open, it's down the highway's open. So I
And my
don't know if
girlfriend said it was only a 4-hour delay, which was less than CBSA.
yeah, fair enough. Look, and I think your idea might have worked in your mind, but it requires some cooperation from the media and government as well to be honest and truthful about what you're doing. I
Yeah.
don't know if you would have gotten that, but in either case, so you guys said, okay, Manitoba said I'm in. So each territory starts saying, yeah, okay, we're in. I guess we're going to Ottawa now, and this is like the
Right.
January 12th or 13th and 14th or so, as this is kind of
12th,
materializing.
January 12th. And we also said anybody that can't afford to make it, because we had no fundraiser and no plan to do a fundraiser at that point.
Mhm.
Anyone that can't afford to make it, stay back and do the slow rolls, right?
Okay.
In support, right? Because you can't afford to go, that's fine. Stay back. And we had
Mhm.
Cindy in Calgary that did exactly that. She was a one of mine that had offered up her services, and I was like, "Thank you, Cindy," and she did an amazing job. Her and I did mapping and stuff together. I mean, she did it all. I just helped just a little bit, you know. And she told me her details, and I was like, "That rocks." And then you've got oh, Jody Ledgerwood.
Jody.
Jody, she is my my queen QEW moms, you know. I mean,
Okay.
you know, they people did fantastic stuff. I'm so proud of the of everybody that went. I really am. And the way they were able to keep their cool. That was amazing.
No,
Yeah.
you can see it still touches your heart. Now you're doing this
Yeah.
from Ontario. You didn't go fly out or drive out to BC to join the entire convoy, right? You kind of joined it at some point, or how did that work
Um,
for you?
well, I had gone to, I was in Texas on January 20th, and I needed a load to get either back home or somewhere back to Canada. And then I was hoping to get another run in. January 20th. No, that was after the run. I had gone from Florida up to high level Alberta. Let me tell you, you people that live up in Alberta, I love you. God bless you. How you live up there, I do not know. It's
We
not my
love it.
kind of weather.
That's what
I
keeps
drove.
them out. Yeah,
Yeah, is your snowstorms of recent is
yeah.
definitely means it's not a place for me.
No, I'm pretty sure if there was ever an attack from the south, they would stop at Alberta. They wouldn't go any more further. So we're okay up near Edmonton. I don't think anybody's coming for us here. But no, you're
Right?
not wrong. Alberta can be it could be a lot of fun. Manitoba, you put them on that list too. Manitoba can be a lot of blizzard there too.
I was just like, holy cow, holy snow. It's freezing cold.
So
I'm
let's do a
losing my
convoy.
right. I'm losing my white dog in your snowbanks, right?
Yep,
I just like, oh my lord. And it just snow just kept coming. And I'm like, well, at least, I'm not timid to the snow, because I could have seen a Florida driver up there going, like, I'm parking till spring.
for
I
sure.
passed ice roads, and I'm looking down going, and that doesn't look like anything I want to go on. So I deliver in high level. I end up back in Edmonton. I'm fighting for a load to get either back to Ontario, back to the States, to bounce back to Canada. I can't remember the date of that high level load, but I got back to Edmonton and I did a CBC interview while I was up there, and ended up taking a load to Texas. That's how I ended up in Texas on January 20th. And then I took a load back to Canada, back to, it was delivering to GTA.
Okay.
I never delivered that load myself. ADD Trucking delivered it for me. I parked my trailer, and Ben had made the arrangements for it to be delivered. So that was really cool.
Cool.
Because I kept saying, I'll just go and deliver it on the 3rd. And he goes, oh, no, you're not leaving Ottawa. Yeah, I'm going to have that delivered for you. And I'm like, you kidding me? It's like 6 a.m. He goes, no worries. My guys will do it.
Nice.
And they did. It was kind of cool. It was very cool. We worked together so well to solve everybody's issues, and to make sure everybody could enjoy themselves and stay. And it was just heartwarming that truck drivers weren't yelling at each other for parking 16 minutes in a fuel island.
No, fair enough. No, I can tell
Yeah.
you here in Alberta, when we heard about going through Calgary, by the time it was going through Calgary is when I got wind of it, and we were pretty excited and happy about it, because we were all on the board of freedom. And yeah, absolutely, why are they coming after the truckers for mandates? You were our heroes for so long. You're the one that kept things moving for so long, and then all of a sudden, you alone in your cab is a dangerous thing to the whole world. So we need to put a mask on your face. And just
Right.
for show, and this is just for show, like you could have just done it for show, but you have your reasons, and nor should you have to do anything in this particular world we live in. So the convoy is now making its way across. So we're in like late January 15, 16, 17, 18, something like that. It's now making its way across. You're in Texas on the 20th. So you come up to Ontario, and then you're in Ottawa 22nd, 23rd, 24th is when it rolls in, right?
28th. It rolled in on the
28th. Okay.
28th, January 28th.
So you were there in Ottawa, or did you join the convoy on the way in?
No. See, we slowed rolled on the 23rd in Sarnia to recognize those, or 22nd, whatever the Sunday was. I think it was the 23rd. We slowed rolled so that when you guys left from BC, Ontario was slow rolling already. So the idea behind that was to show unity, that we were together, and to show the government that thought it was for potholes, that Ontario wasn't going to roll for BC for potholes, and that this thing was a whole lot bigger than they were giving it credit for, because I had already
Right.
done interviews, and they're like, yeah, convoys are pretty small. They were not expecting what happened. And I don't know how they didn't. I mean, they knew they had to. They can't say they didn't. Ontario was rolling trucks in a circle everywhere. Niagara, Windsor, Sarnia. Whether it was trucks, and it was regular people, just everyday citizens. Everybody was rolling by the 23rd. And how did they not know? They did know. They had to.
They knew. The OPP
Yeah.
knew. They're passing the reports. We learned that in the
Right.
POEC.
Right, because Brian was my liaison. He was amazing. Yeah. And he gave me a card that says we were not allowed to wear masks in a protest. It is against policies and rules. So
For who? The police or who's
no,
not allowed to wear?
for the protesters. Protesters are not allowed to wear masks in a protest.
Is that for identity purposes?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So they want to make sure they can identify people. It has nothing to do with health. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So the 26, 27, 28, things are getting closer. CBC is now admitting, because there's a bunch of people on the roads with flags and stuff, that this is not the pothole convoy of BC. This is actually something much bigger now. They're still calling it just a few trucks and stuff like that. But other media.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're getting quotes out of Trudeau at this time as things are moving across the country. But we're hearing that out of other media that it's a large convoy. It seems to be a large convoy. So now you're probably getting pretty excited because you hear the numbers, the numbers, and they're getting closer. So now we're moving into the 28th, 29th, and 30th. Now at this point, you're coming into Ottawa as well. You're joining them on the first night, the Saturday?
I left my home.
Or did you come in on Friday?
I came on the Friday, which was the 28th. Right. I left my home on the 27th because we took, when you're leaving from southwestern Ontario and you're bringing Sarnia, Windsor, Niagara, GTA, I mean, it's just crazy. All this together at one merge point, it was going to be a nightmare it was actually we wanted to do it so that it wasn't on a Friday, which was the 28th. The liaison suggested to do it the Thursday because Friday everybody's traveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he encouraged me to do it on the Thursday and break it into 2 days. I thought, why the heck not? So that's what we did. And we parked in Napanee and Kingston and Fields, and there was food everywhere. It was a massive party already. And we hadn't been to Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So at this point, the mood is good amongst all of you. So you got your individual pods that have basically a leader or so from the individual areas.
Yeah.
And the spirits are high. So there's no violence going on. There's nobody getting riled up and mad. The police are basically, they're there, but they're not stopping you. I don't
think I even saw them in Kingston or Napanee. I don't remember seeing police anywhere. I remember seeing trucks and truck drivers and volunteers feeding us. I don't remember even seeing a police officer.
No, fair enough. Now, the stuff that came from the west as it entered the Manitoba border, that's where the OPP did intervene and did meet them up and kind of joined at that point. That's the testimony from the OPP on the POEC. But they weren't trying to stop. They weren't arresting anybody. They weren't going after leaders. They weren't doing anything. They were basically just keeping tabs. And they've also admitted that they had some people in the convoy itself that was working with the OPP, which were reporting back that, no, there's nothing going on here. These are not crazies at all. But this is also when I think CBC and the PMO's office really started to vilify this group and started to use a lot of harsh words to describe them and started to get everybody in Ottawa very worried that in comes this cavalry of crazies. So now we're on Friday. A whole bunch of things. We don't need to get into all those names. It's tough enough to say Trudeau in the afternoon. I have children, so we'll stay away from that word.
I was like, how am I misogynistic? I'm a woman.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't get that. And there were women within the convoy. Like, lots of us. There was lots of us. There was more than I expected for sure. Yeah.
No, it's vilification. It's just that. It's trying to make things a lot worse for you. Maybe even get you guys so upset that you do things a little bit further than you ever planned on. I think that might have been part of it.
I believe that was definitely a plan.
Yeah, you guys didn't fall for that one, which is great. So we're getting reports from the convoy itself that's peaceful. It's making way across. We're seeing nothing but wonderful video of people waving their flags, showing support, holding signs. We're even getting montages with music and stuff at this point. Everybody's getting really excited. And now it's
Yeah.
rolling in. And the first thing that happens from what I understand of the POEC is you guys were kind of directed where to go and go ahead and go and park on these roads and go over there. You were basically escorted into the area. There was no barriers. They weren't blocking you. And this is also because you guys had some liaison conversations going and you were in communication with OPS, OPP, even I think even the RCMP.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I was in contact with my liaison. Then they'd switch me off to another liaison just to keep touch. I mean, I really didn't see them within the convoy. I do know we had a few incidents they had to deal with, so maybe that's where they dropped back. We had within the convoy out of Windsor, a gentleman carrying some sort of equipment on the back of a flatbed. He was not part of the convoy. He had lost his equipment and it crushed a car. It first came out that it was part of convoy. The convoy killed somebody. It wasn't. The gentleman did die, so it did cause a delay for the Windsor drivers. Some were able to reroute, but that was an incident that had nothing to do with convoy. We just happened to be there at the time it happened, and it was a guy that had cut off somebody who was just coming home from night shift. I have friends that know who that gentleman is, but and he passed away on a fluke accident, really. So they had to deal with that. Then up in just before Napanee, a couple of cars tangled up, just following too close, slippery conditions, whatever. Light bulbs needed to be replaced, whatever, but they still had to do their job and take down their notes and stuff. So I think that's what they were doing, but it was just little minor stuff, people getting excited, carried away, following too close, slippery conditions, just, yeah.
Now, on the Friday, what we heard from the city's testimony, it was they really didn't have much of a problem. They thought it was going to be just a few days and you guys would be gone by Monday or so. They thought, well, they're going to come here, blow off some steam, honk a bit maybe, and then go home. So they were not really stopping anybody at that point.
They really weren't following along either.
Right. They didn't know the real deal either. Yeah. So you're in Ottawa at this point now on the Friday. You're rolling in with the rest. Are you meeting up with Chris and the rest of the team at this point?
So what happens is we have overhead signage on where to go. So we're directed to get off on
Who
Pine.
Put that up?
Oh yeah.
Who put that
I'm
up?
assuming the city or the police, right? So it says get off at Pinecrest.
This way. Okay.
So we get off at Pinecrest. We turn onto there's another street in between, but Carling Avenue. And then they take us onto the Parkway. And I'm literally panicking because I lived 30 years in Ottawa and I'm thinking the Parkway, are you kidding me? That's not commercial, right? I'm like, you want me to go down there with these trucks and trailers? And he's like, yep. And he moved, they had barrels set up and they were directing us there. That's where they wanted us to go. So that's where we went. We parked in front of the War Museum because they had the barrels across the other way. We had no idea at that point. There were already people up on the hill. Like we had no idea. I got my guys settled, made sure everybody was settled. I had no idea. Other trucks were filtering in through other points in the city, getting closer to Parliament Hill. I had no idea the guys were doing that. I thought everybody followed the line, but they didn't. But, again, everybody was independent. They were them. They were responsible for themselves. And the plans were never to park on the street. I mean, James was supposed to be in charge of having a parking lot and be in liaison with the OPS. And to have them park us on the street, I was like, okay, well, this has got to be the plan that had changed within a certain time frame, because things did change quite rapidly.
Yeah. Interesting.
So so I parked there, and I went up to the OPS officer and I said, "This is where you want us." And he goes, "Yeah, just park it along this way, you know." So we did. We followed direction. Um and I knew Chris and Tamara were coming in from the west and going to be an arm prior. So I said to the guys, "You guys are right here. Do you need anything? You're all set up." They're like, "Yep." I was in my pickup truck. My husband and I decided to take my pickup truck with a yellow beacon so that I could assist anybody with pickup trucks. And that we never even thought how many people would be coming with pickup trucks and cars. We just
Hmm.
assumed if the group of us needed something, I had a vehicle. We had no idea how many vehicles were going to be there. So that's the reason I took my pickup truck. And I tell you, it was cold because my heater didn't work. So
Mm.
it was minus 13 and I had no heat in that truck, like very minimal. Um, and so I went to my son's house on the outskirts, and I dropped my dog off. I ate dinner there. And that's where I was going to stay for the duration of the convoy, um, because I didn't bring my big cab. So I didn't have a place to stay. And so I was staying with him. I dropped the dog off and I kept following on to where Tamara and Chris were along the way. Um, and so I went up to Arm Prior to wait for them. And it was a party up in Arm Prior. It was
Yep.
fantastic. It was an amazing, and I've been to Arm Prior. My kid used to play hockey there. It is like the quietest dead town ever.
Hmm.
It wasn't that day.
So let
It
me
was
ask
insane.
you, yeah, so you went from a really low to that night crossing the border to this point now, and this was in about a month span or so, just over a month span, because that was late
Yeah,
November, and now we're in the late January, almost 2 months. So from
almost 2
that
months.
point, yeah, from that point to Arm Prior seeing this party, tell me about your heart. Like, how did you feel at that moment? Did you say, "I'm glad I'm not done. I'm glad I'm here, and this is my," going through your mind and your heart at that time?
I just felt like all those little signs that I had while I struggled through 2020 and 2021, the little kid walking up to me for no reason at all while I was extremely sad. Um, I couldn't go shopping, I couldn't buy groceries, I couldn't do anything that are I consider my duties for the house. And I couldn't do that because of the mandates. And I felt useless other than driving. And this kid offers me a folded fish, for no reason. And I was just like, "Are you sure that's for me?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's for you." And I was like, "Okay." The fish is still on my dashboard. Um, and it'll stay there forever as long as it holds up. But I mean, just these little kinds of people's kind gestures that got me through. And I thought, wow, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one. Look
Hmm.
at these are all the only ones.
That's right.
These are all the people that felt just like me, and were some of them didn't make it to be there. Um, the mother that wrote the letter to put into our lunch sacks that I happened to get about Mrs. Newfield, her daughter, who was going to be a midwife, and she told her mother that she couldn't make the new normal and took her life. And I
Mm.
thought, we're standing for all the ones that couldn't be here. We're standing for those and we're giving them a voice. We're standing for all the me's that were going to be the Mrs. Neufeld. We're standing for the kids. I remember one post, and this broke my heart on TikTok. A 4-year-old had asked her mommy, "When the truckers get to Ottawa, does that mean I get to go swimming again?" And I remember my comment, "Somebody buy that kid a pool." Like
Hmm.
just somebody go buy that kid a pool, right? And it just that's who I was there for. All the ones that were alone. Yeah, that's who I was there
And
for.
Now, did you feel the rest of us who were also not there across the country that were supporting this, that were cheering you on, that was watching alternate media, independent media, looking at social media? Because the entire country at that point were taking polls about whether or not you guys were doing the right thing, and they were really pushing that narrative at that point too. I remember CBC, CTV doing exactly that at this point, still vilifying you at this point. And right now, what you're seeing is a party. You have the city pointing you guys where to go. You have OPS telling you where to park. Like, this is not an insurrection. Like, if it was, why are you working with your enemy? Why are you going into their traps? Like, this is not an insurrection. You guys aren't fighting the government. You're actually cooperating with them. And if this
Yeah.
was a tactical movement, you guys are not very smart on tactical movements, because they're telling you where to go. They're telling you where to put your machines and stuff. So
I told
this
you
is
I was
clearly-
naive.
I guess so. I guess so. Don't run an army, because what you ended up, you cooperated. You had liaisons, and at this point,
Yeah.
you're seeing it on the ground, and you're seeing it as a beautiful thing. You're seeing voices
Yeah.
coming together, and you're seeing the silence have some sort of voice now. So you're seeing the best of Canada, but yet the media is not agreeing with you. They're still doing
No.
this. So at this point, did you start to understand, or did anybody around you start to understand, this might get really weird on us, because on the ground we're seeing one thing, but in the media we're hearing something else? Did any of those dots start to be connected at that point, or did that come a little bit later?
You know, I think in some ways we were sheltered from all of what you guys were seeing that were home.
Like the mainstream. Okay.
Right? Because honestly, I was busy. I was putting out fires every 10 minutes. Something had to be done. Something had to help. Somebody wanted this. Somebody, thought this was a great idea. Can we roll with it? How do we figure it out? The lawyers wanted this, it was just constant. And I remember thinking, am I the only one that's staying up till like 1 and 2 in the morning to do all this stuff? And, is this why I look like a bag of crap every day? I'm sure there were far more. I mean, Miranda and Sean, they were night owls as well. They went and did, security breach around, and they checked stuff out. And for the first, I think it was 5 or 6 days, I was running in and out of Ottawa to go to the family's house. I was trying to make sure I could come in the morning with intel about what our snake was like to get in and out of the city. And I was also asking trucks, hey, look, you can't park here. You got to move over. Can we back this guy up just a little bit, this guy up just a little bit, and put you in there? So, I mean, and everybody was pretty receptive. Anybody that I had talked to, they were like, right. I'm like we can't block a lane. It's a little tight in here. Can we move over just a little bit? I'll help you, whatever. And everybody was receptive. Nobody was, F you and I'm not moving. I didn't get any of that. The guys were fantastic.
Well, we skipped a really big, important piece of this story. At this point, you now know how to back up a truck?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
good. So now you can help that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So from North Carolina to Ottawa, you learned.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it didn't take me 8 years. But, yeah, I've done some backups. I'm like, you park and you're like, wow, did I just do that? That was flipping amazing. But I'm going to just walk out like, no big deal, right? You cannot, in this job, you cannot pat yourself on the back, because that means the very next backup, you mess it completely up.
There goes all those headlights, and you'll be changing bulbs again. Yep.
Right. And it's probably the one that's got 12 open spots, and you're trying to hit one of them. And you're just like, you know what, I give up. Give me one with trucks on either side, and I'll back into that.
So at this point now, you're out there having a party, and I think at this point we also had about $10 million or so raised on GoFundMe. So as
Yeah.
everybody was coming around there, you guys were coming in and rolling in. Around that time, that number's up to 10 million or so. So I
Yeah.
guess you guys must have clearly understood that there was support happening, $5, $10, $20, and more, all over Canada. So that
Yeah.
must have been a validation for you that was lots of support.
Well, I mean, I remember the first, I think it was the first 174,000. I went, guys, do you realize we just made an MP salary for a year? And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, let's go for Justin's salary for the year of
Like 240 or something.
349 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, how many MP salaries did we just make? Like, I mean, that's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, well,
Fair
there's
enough.
one, there's two,
Mhm.
there's three, whatever. I didn't really look at this big number because I really didn't want a fundraiser in the first place. I suggested against it. I figured if we were going to do one on the Facebook, that we should do one for each individual trucker. And from what I was seeing from the truckers at that point, let's say Don got, 2,000 and John only got 500, I think they would have shared between themselves and, helped each other out along the way. And I think that would have kept us out of trouble. But I don't know why I thought at that time we shouldn't have done a group fundraiser and we should have done it individually. I can't go back and speculate, but I do know that that's what I wanted, was each individual trucker have their own instead of one big massive pot.
Well, I think maybe
Yeah.
what you were tapping into was the assumption that big money brings big problems and big headlines and big allegations and accusations. Because what ended up happening was
Yeah.
that 10 million number really got used and leveraged against you guys in the narrative as well. Because it was being talked about like you're being funded globally and foreign funders and all this
Russia.
other crazy stuff. Right? Russia. Like Trump himself sent you a check. Like it was really crazy.
Oh, wow.
what they were
Did he
doing with that.
really? I've read his book.
But
You
that
really need to read his book.
Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a couple.
Cool. I think Art of the Deal is one I read, but that was before president.
Yeah.
But anyways, at this point, now U.S. has your attention of the U.S. So I think Tucker Carlson and even started to do stories at this time.
Well, yeah, but we had the attention of the U.S. drivers well before that. I had talked before we even turned a wheel. I had talked to them, to a car hauler and their group out in Washington. And all they did was Washington to BC. We sold the plan to them. Whether they ever rolled, I don't know, or whether they became the Patriot convoy or whatever they called it. Yeah. I don't know. But I do know that I was regularly getting calls from the U.S. Saying, how do we help? Well, how do we help? And I said, well, this is our idea, blah, 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 right? And again, that was probably within the first, 14, 20 days or whatever. And then I probably changed that and gave them, we're going to Ottawa. And they couldn't come to Ottawa unless they were VAT. So,
Right.
I probably just told them slow roll, help us slow roll,
Gotcha.
Yeah. And from what I understand, Coots had that issue on the other side of the border. There were issues as well, from what I understand, what I've read.
Right. Some of that came out on the POEC that the American side was also being blocked by Americans. So the whole border was being blocked, both sides.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't really get to, we didn't really spend a lot of time on that in the POEC because, Canada can't really blame the Americans for much. But in either case, at this point now, there's $10 million in the bank. People are pretty excited. More and more people are coming. They're all talking about my fuel will be covered, my expenses will be covered, so I may as well go. And then you guys ramped it up and you brought out those bouncy castles and hot tubs. So you really sent Ottawa a big message there.
That was Dana that did that, from what I understand.
But in all fairness, nothing really wrong with that. But it did ramp things up from Ottawa City Hall's perspective. They got mad.
Oh no. So, I'm not upset with it. I totally support it. I was there when she was talking about it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is Ottawa saw that as, look, these people are embarrassing us. They're making this really seem like it's a party, and we want to make it into something else. Yeah,
Well,
I wouldn't
Diane
be surprised.
Deans, did you see my video on Diane Deans? I was like, Diane, you want to stab the bouncy castles? Are you going to let them get out of the way first? Or are you like, we
Jeez.
just need to know for safety reasons? Like, I just need to know. Are you letting these people get out the way first? That's all I just
Mhm.
need to know. Yeah. Safety first and always. Yeah.
So during the first few days of the party part, you guys were still waiting for a conversation. Like you wanted to have a conversation. This is
I
really the
was
reason
always
for
waiting
going
for a
there.
conversation. Yeah.
Right. So now Saturday comes, everybody's partying, Sunday comes, and now you're starting to understand that maybe they're not going to come out and talk. They're now starting to talk about you guys are there unwelcomed. You guys maybe need to start going home. This is where the Monday, Tuesday conversation started to turn for all of you. Do you remember that part?
You know, I think Chris and Tamara may remember that more than I do because I always had hope
That they
that
were come
someone would
talking.
come and talk to me. And I was on the phone and I was calling my friend Michael Cote, who is an MP for the area of which I grew up in, was Don Valley. And
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with this man. I was like, dude, I'm on the phone. Dude, I'm not a terrorist. My mom, my dad, you know, we were pretty much in diapers together, grew up, went through school together. You know who I am. And
Right.
I'm not some weirdo. So come meet with me, have a conversation. I was on the phone with him constantly making this call. And with Eli El-Shantiri, who used to own the lighthouse in Constance Bay, who I worked for. So he knew very well who I was. And, I was a city employee for, since 2006, at least. I think it's probably longer than that, but from 2006 to 2014. So these people knew who I was. They
Mm-hmm.
knew I wasn't a threat. I mean, if they would have gone to talk to any one of my managers, they would have her. Oh my gosh, she's the biggest jokester on. If you want a practical joke, pranked or somebody pranked, you go see
Mm-hmm.
her. So I just didn't understand why these people that I would have called friends at one point wouldn't even return a phone call.
It's because they
And I
believe in
didn't
that
understand
Nazi
it.
flag stuff. Yeah, because on the first day is where we got that picture. So the first day, the first hour, we got a flag picture, and then that was just repeated all over the place. So you're not getting much with your own contacts, your own MP that you grew up with, the people you know, and there's not much happening on that front. Tamara and team are still working with maybe the city and the government trying to talk. I think Tom Marazzo comes in around at this point as well. And then there's press conferences that are being held with you guys. Can you kind of take me, because the one press conference that really got my attention was the first time I saw Tom Marazzo representing you guys and working with you guys. Can you tell me about that particular press conference? 10 minutes before, like, did you know him? Was he part of this? Like, when did you get to meet him, and how did he become a spokesperson for you?
Um, well, he was supposed to come in and help. I met him through James Bowder. James Bowder walked him in, said, "Hey, this is Tom Marazzo. He's here to help. He's great at logistics, ex-military, blah, blah, blah." Tom Marazzo came in. He looked at our map. He asked me a bunch of questions, asked me who was who, and that's in the POEC. You can see the names that were down the list.
Mm-hmm. I remember
Um,
that.
yeah. And I said, that's who's who. And he said, okay, what's the logistics look like? So I was showing him on the map where it is. He goes, okay, we need to keep away from emergencies. Where are those? I pointed those out on the map because I was an Ottawa resident for so long and actually had lived in the downtown core in my 20s. I could give him that information. We want to stay away from Elizabeth Briere. We want to stay from, from these areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so him and I worked well together at that point. And he said to me, he said, you are a logistics nightmare for the government, right? At this point, you cannot be kettled. You are all over the city. You can't be
Right.
kettled. And I just thought, well, geez, us stupid ass truckers did something good.
Well, that's because you don't have a central. You're not doing it like a plan. It's just happening. It's organic. It's
it's
grassroots.
Yeah, it's just happening. And he's like, wow. But then later, he's on with everybody else to move the trucks into a situation where we could be killed. I never understood that. So I was like, why would we do that? It doesn't sound like what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they want something from us, right? They want us to move, they have to give us something to do that. Well,
Right.
where are they going to give? Right? They're the first injunction. And this is what people fail to tell any of these like suits. Their very first injunction on the horns basically left the trucks in place.
Yeah.
Because without a horn, you cannot complete a Schedule 1, which means you can't move the truck. You don't have a valid inspection on the truck. So they all think they're so smart. Yay, the truckers can't honk. Well, truckers can't move either. Then they take our gas, our fuel, right? Well, without fuel,
Yep.
the truckers can't move. Everything they did kept us right there in Ottawa. It was so
Right.
silly. And I
Right
was
from
laughing.
pointing you to that spot and then keeping you
Right.
there, even from that point. Yeah.
Everything they did was to keep us there. I was like, do you want us to go? Like, seriously?
Well, was the original plan or the idea kind of to be on foot down by the hill, but have the truck somewhere else and you would kind of just bust or walk in?
Yeah. We were supposed to park at one of the parks. And I was like, well, even when James had said that, I was like, James, there's not enough parking. Do you know how big we are? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna need a secondary parking spot. Oh no, I got it. And I was like, okay, well, I hope you got it because I know you don't got it. There's not enough space for these trucks.
Right.
I knew the area and I knew what was there. But we were supposed to go in and out, yeah, daily.
Okay, so that's kind of where the plan ended up being later that they were trying to implement, which was they're going to put some people out in Van Cleek Hill. There was another place they were going to put people. So later that kind of materialized as a potential plan. But as we're going to get to here shortly, you guys didn't have a chance for that. So about the 12th, 13th, 12th, 13th, somewhere in there, you guys started to getting wind that the Emergencies Act might be invoked. At least some rumors started to come around at this time.
Mm-hmm.
I know at least by the 13th, the rumors were strong, but there might have even been some around the 12th. This was after the 9th when they were already coordinating with Marazzo and others to move trucks around. Because on the 9th, we have an incident where they couldn't move trucks because the barriers weren't moved. So during the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, it looked like there was some attempt to coordinate and get some cooperation out of the government. It wasn't at this time, because I'm just going by the POEC testimony, there was the mayor's deal that was in place, which was go ahead and do some stuff. Steve, the city manager,
which we thought was fake. We actually
fake?
thought that was fake at the Arc, yeah, because we weren't contacted about that. We you know, I mean, I'm busy. If they send an email,
sure,
I'm not going to see the email right away.
right, and there's no leader, right? So there's no head of this snake. So there really isn't.
I get somebody bringing me in this piece of paper, and the biggest problem with that piece of paper is it wasn't our original logo. So if you look at the logos between messaging, one is always done. Ours was always done with a clear background. It had no black on the back. And if you look at the video, I'm pointing at that black background and I'm going, it's got to be fake. We had so much fake stuff coming out. You had to look at every little piece of that document
to make sure it's valid.
To make sure it was valid. And by having the black background, which means it didn't have, whoever did that letter did not have the original image.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they have to crop it or edit it or something from somewhere else.
Right. So whoever did that letter didn't think that that would spark a fake news post, but it did.
Right.
And it was that logo, whoever did that, because they didn't have access to the original logo.
Gotcha. And that's a really good thing to point out, because if they had the original, it would have been from you. You guys would have sent it out. This was suspect right away. So that immediately caused a bunch of confusion amongst everybody. And then that got pointed to at the time, and then we heard later in the POEC, that was pointed at disorganization, inability for you guys to cooperate together. And it was basically a sign Well, at least what the government was saying. It was a sign that you guys would not be able to fulfill any deals that you could negotiate with them anyways. So this is kind of where the government said, look, and this is their testimony. I'm not saying this is true. This is what their
Yeah.
testimony is, that they had no other options at that point. This is why the EA was going to be coming in, because they couldn't negotiate. And it looks like there was confusion amongst the leadership, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to get into all of that confusion. I just want to kind of highlight the fact that there was confusion that made things more difficult. So now on the 13th, you're hearing about the EA and you're having some problems with this messaging that's going out. Now, what are you thinking at this point? They're not going to do it? Are you still staying naive and optimistic that they're going to come out and talk? Or are you starting to wonder and think, oh, maybe this is going to get bad?
I'm listening to Keith Wilson, who says we're within our rights to protest. And he put that video out with Chris. Everybody come to Ottawa for that weekend. That you're well within your right. Why would my lawyer give me bad advice? Why?
Right.
Is it on purpose? Well, is it just that's his belief? Is it, why would he do that? There's no logical reason why your lawyer would give you bad advice. Right, and so it was simply bad advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, he says, go ahead and go back. You guys are thinking you have the legal rights, but at the same time, the government's maneuvering on their legal front as well, declaring things. Well, they didn't officially declare it an occupation. So we heard that in the POEC. So Marco didn't declare it an actual occupation, but they were using that term. So they were using that in order to advance some of their attempts to have you guys move through letters, and they were telling you with notices. So now on the 14th, he drops it. The EA is dropped. So this is now official emergency for the entire Canada. We're doing the EA now. Haven't done that since his daddy did it a long time ago. So now we're looking at what's going to happen here. The Senate is first. I think the House quickly passed it, and it starts to make its way through the Senate over the next couple of days. At this point, are you guys thinking to yourself, we better start getting out of here, or are you still listening to Wilson and digging in? So what's kind of happening at this time?
We're still listening to Wilson because he's telling us you are fine, and we weren't fine. And I'm away from Wilson and the rest of them, right? Okay. So I'm starting to get reports that people will get run over by a horse, that they will say it's a bicycle, that the horse ran over, and that they have to shoot the horse. I'm starting to get concerned.
Right. So this is getting messages. People now.
Well, they haven't started anything yet, but the messages.
So you're getting messages about horse, bicycle, and stuff before it happened?
We all knew about it, yeah. And okay, actually, if you go back through. If you go back through my POE testimony, I include those little blocks. They're black box blocks. And in that black box, it says this is going to happen. And they're going, the rider's name will be Jill, and the horse will fall and they'll have to shoot it in the street.
Oh, weird. Okay. I'd like to follow
up with
that with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's in my POEC testimony. So we had this being told to us, and I'm like, okay, this is really weird. And then I start getting messages. I think it was Thursday night, maybe. Should we start coming? And I'm like, I'm getting some really weird messages. Are you planning on coming with your kids? Are you coming alone? Or are you family? Yeah. You know what? Let's see how the weekend goes. Don't come. Right. And I started telling people, unless you're prepared for the worst, don't come.
Right.
So I started having an eerie feeling. And I'm like, I don't know. We're hearing about sonic boom machines. We're hearing just weird stuff. And nobody can say, no, these machines don't exist. And nobody can say, and remember, again, I'm removed from Tamara and Chris and Keith Wilson for the most part. And I'm at the Ark. So, I'm dealing directly with those on the ground. I'm not dealing with, the up stuff because that's the way they wanted it. But that's just what happened. right? So
Yeah.
I'm dealing with on the ground. I'm dealing with Ottawa. I'm dealing with needs of Ottawa citizens that come in, the calls that come in. We're finding them resources. So, yeah, I don't know. I just had this weird feeling when people ask my personal opinion, what I thought. I don't know. But be prepared if you're coming. Be prepared for the worst.
Okay. Okay.
You
So you
know.
were getting a good pulse on it that something bad was happening. You were getting lots of information that made you just not comfortable. And
Yeah.
you kind of, yeah. So at what point did you decide to leave? Was it before the horse incident actually happened, or was it after that?
Yeah. I don't know. I had almost 12, 16, maybe 18 hours where my liaison was constantly on me,
Okay.
constantly texting me. You're going to be arrested. I'm like, I'm not going to be arrested. I did nothing wrong. You're going to be arrested. I did nothing wrong. You need to walk out of the city. I said, dude, are you out of your mind? I'm 52 years old. I've cut my hand with the circular, so I have no circulation in my hand. My finger will freeze. It will have to be amputated. Like, it's just the way it is. That's my life. And I have a senior dog that can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not happening. And he goes, you need to walk out. You need to leave your car. I'm not leaving my flipping car anywhere. And oh yeah, that's also, I think, the day they took our bank account. So life was just in a, like, things
Right.
were crazy. The phones going off that morning in the room were, it was one after another, but I had already gotten a message from my husband prior to them shutting off and telling us they shut off the bank accounts.
So
My husband
he knew
already
right away.
said, I knew before. And when they called and they said, yeah, unless you leave, and they still didn't turn them back on when we were gone. So
Mm-hmm.
it was all bullshit. It was a lie. And everything was a lie. Um, and you know, that's really hard to even think of trusting a cop these days. I see a cop and I'm just like, yep, and I go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't trust them. And if it's going to be film and verify everything that's going on, because I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. But yeah, so it was like a whole day of like up and down and emotional roller coaster, and then him texting me like throughout the night, threatening, you know, the whole 9 yards. The next morning we get up, we hear Tamara's gone, and she's also been arrested. um we we go and meet at the Sheridan, and my liaison calls while we're there. Miranda's filming it. There's myself, there's Joe, Ryan. And I had fallen on Chris's knee. I bet you Chris doesn't even know this. I was horse playing with Chris, of course, just a little Spitfire. I'm 5'2", and I think I'm like 6'10".
Mm-hmm.
And I was horse playing with him, and I fell onto his knee, and I heard 3 cracks.
Oof.
And I had no idea what I had done. I got up and I stood up, like sat up, and I'm like, okay, that kind of hurts. I'll be fine. And I'm just like not showing that I hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
And later, either that night or the next morning, Ryan's like, yeah, I think you really hurt your ribs. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh, right. So could I have taken a beating? Yeah, no way. I couldn't have taken a beating to the ribs. That could have gone right through a lung or something. Like, and I told everybody, I said to everybody, I said, look, we need to get those that have other responsibilities, children, pets, whatever, let them go. Anybody that wants to stay, stay. Nobody's asking them to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But those that have responsibilities, the truck drivers, if they get arrested, they may not cross the border. That's why the whole reason they're here,
Right.
right?
To be
They
able
need
to
to
work.
go, right? So if they get arrested, they can't work, right? Which is why they were here. So let's give them that out. Let's give them the option. We've got BJ who's hurt. He needs to get out because can you see them beating on his cast? I mean, like, he'd be in so much pain. So he's got to go. The lawyer needs to go because he's got to take care of Chris and Tamara. They're cooling their heels, right? So, I mean, it only made sense to get those that had responsibilities, those that needed to go for work, those that were elderly or injured, like myself. Elderly, injured, and had a pet, right? So, and they were talking about euthanizing dogs, taking children.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to protect these people and give them the okay. It was okay to go. We'll come back and we'll fight another day. It's okay. Because a lot of people were so dug in, they weren't going to go anywhere. Yeah. So we had to give some that wanted to go, it's okay. It's all right. You go. Right. And that's we agreed on that in that room. So we put the message out and said, look, if you got to go. There's no shame in leaving. There's no shame in not getting beaten. There's no shame in that. None.
Right. Well, they took it to a new level, which was not part of your plan. At no point did your original plan have this stage in it. So I could understand why there was some decisions made they've gone too far. This isn't a game we're here to play. We're definitely going to lose this battle if we try it. I think the writing was pretty clear at that point. So that's what you guys did.
It's funny, this came up earlier. This came up way earlier. Within the first week, this came up. We were sitting in the room with the lawyers at the ARC in the boardroom, and Officer Poe, whatever, came in with his Italian sidekick, and the room erupted because Brigitte does smack questioning. I don't just go for the fluff stuff. I want to know the answer. I want to know the tough answers. And they asked us when the protest would be over. And I said, get us a meeting with your boss. Justin, get him on the phone. We didn't have to meet face to face. How about a Zoom call? Right.
Sure.
We need a meeting. Right. He goes, well, and I remember this. It was so funny. He says, well, my boss is like my wife. They have my balls in their purse. And I'm like, well, you're married to the wrong woman.
Right.
And he says to me, right. And he goes, so when is the protest going to be over? And I said, to what extent are you willing to do? What extent are you willing to go? Are you going to shoot us in the streets? And everybody in the room was like, whoa, how can you ask that? And I'm like, because I really needed to know.
Right. You want to see his reaction and response.
Right. And, they're cool as a cucumber. They're cops. Everybody else flipped out. And, they're like, don't even go there. Don't even ask that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I needed to know. And I don't know why that came into my head at that time, whether there was friction, some sort of friction feeling, some sort of, I don't know. But I did ask that question early on, if they were willing to shoot us in the streets.
Yeah. And did you feel like the response was going to be that, or what kind of answer did you get from that question?
I think just the abruption, and everybody just let it drop. Nobody would allow the question to be answered. They moved on. And I think that was a big mistake, because I think it should have been answered. I think that's a question that should have been answered. How far were you willing to go? I mean, would that have changed what we did when we did it? Who knows? I don't know.
Fair enough.
There's so many, what if we did this in response to that? Could we have changed it? And I mean, some people look at Convoy, it's over, it's done, we've moved on. And they don't understand. For me, I'm still sitting here going, what if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? Maybe people wouldn't have got hurt. I feel responsible. I asked people to go because I was hurting. And I asked people to go to Ottawa, and they did.
Right.
And I couldn't save them, and I couldn't help them, and I tried. And I feel responsible.
Yeah, I can understand, but you got to let that part go, because nobody did get hurt, really, right? At the end of this, nobody died. There was a really bad couple days. They cleared the streets. It was violent. There was some people that were hurt in that way. But now I'm going to kind of put a cap and finalize the Ottawa part of things, and I'm going to fast forward to the POEC. I'm also going to ask you for another 15-20 minutes because I think we're going to run a little late if we're going to get to the POEC. Do you have that time?
As I'm sure everybody's fallen asleep by now. They're like, oh, she's talking like she's not.
No. The chat's wild, and we got a whole bunch of questions too. So, but they're really hanging on to this conversation. So I wouldn't mind if we can wrap up with the POEC and your.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Great. Okay, so this ends. We all have a horrible couple days there. We saw the visuals, we saw the videos, we saw them really attacking some people. Okay. Now you're back home. Was your first step after you leave Ottawa was to go back to London, or would you end up going first?
No. Well, I left Ottawa pretty much penniless. I mean, I maybe had 80 cents in my pocket, right? Like I really had nothing. I had lent my pickup truck to a bunch of guys in Ottawa. And so the half tank I had was now a quarter tank of fuel. And I live 9 hours from Ottawa.
Right.
So I was able to get to my son's home. And I stayed there and I was glued to everything. I was making calls saying if any, they needed anything anywhere. My son's like, hey, I can make like stacks of chili, and we were going to prepare and make food and bring it everywhere. And I just kept in touch with everybody. Like, what can I do? What can I do? Where do I go? What do I do? And the biggest challenge for me was, I guess I was in my son's home. There was not a private place for me to be. He's got young kids, just had a baby during convoy. I just like the house was busy and there was no place for me to just decompress and process what I had saw.
Right.
Like, because I was watching. I couldn't take my eyes off the TV. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, how can they do this to Canadians? I thought, my God, what they threatened, they did. I can't believe it. And so I stayed in touch with everybody. I was there, I believe, till the 4th or 5th of March. I had to figure out a way to get home. So I ended up working under the table to get enough fuel money to get home. Just connections in Ottawa. I was able to, with my sore ribs, bend into salt containers and salt walkways in order to get home. So that's what I did. And finally, by the 4th or 5th of March, I was like, it's time for me to leave. My son was like, Mom, you can stay as long as you want, whatever. And I'm like, no, it's time for me to go and start figuring out what's next.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's what you did. So 4th, 5th of March or so, you head back home. You say goodbye to your son. You earn some money to pay for that fuel. And then now you're back home. Now I'm just going to fast forward a bit because the next big thing that would happen to you is you get a call about the POEC and they're inviting you to become a witness. So can you let me know how that went down? Was it through Wilson? Was it something else? Or they just called you and asked you if you want to be part of it? How did that work?
Chris had mentioned something on like through Messenger, right, about the POEC. And I said, well, am I going? Because we'd already started having difficulties with the board, myself and Keith Wilson. And he had said, well, don't worry, Keith Wilson's still your lawyer. Don't worry about it. I'll see what I can do. And, if they need you, they'll call you. Anybody can go. Just a lot of general stuff. And I had no idea that Keith Wilson was given a letter that included my name, Chad and Chris and BJ. And that letter was hidden from us by Miranda. She held on to it, didn't tell us that we were being requested by the POEC, whether Keith Wilson gave it to her to give it out. For some reason, it went nowhere past Miranda, as far as I'm aware. That is the information I was given. They actually tried to reach me through my Facebook to get a hold of me, and then email. And I don't usually look at emails that I don't know who it's coming from. And I definitely rarely go to that little section in Facebook where, you're not a friend of this person and they're sending you a request message or whatever.
Right.
I rarely go to that either. So if people are doing that, I'm like, yeah, sorry, I don't even know you sent me a message, really. It was months they were looking for me before they finally got a hold of me through an email. And her name was Erin. And she had talked to me. And I said, okay, fine. I don't have a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. They said, well, that's cool. We'll send you one. So they sent me this woman, Vanessa Garcia. And I talked to her once and she told me the implications of talking to the POEC. And I'm like, nope, I ain't going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not doing it. Tell them I'm not going. And, jail time the whole night. Like she really laid it on kind of thick.
Right.
And I said, no, I'm not going. So I'm like, everybody else wants to go chit chat. Let them go chit chat. I'm not going.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked again with Erin and Erin's staff. And they said, well, I don't think you understand. You don't have a choice. We're going to subpoena you. And I'm like, then send the subpoena. And they did. I thought it was like kind of silly. I was like, well, geez, you didn't, like, why? You know what happened. You guys followed it. What do you need me there for? And so they subpoenaed me, which gave me a little bit of immunity because of the subpoena, which was what I was going for. And then I talked with Vanessa Garcia again, and she said she was going to handle everything. I never heard from her again. Oh, wow. It's just like, wow, okay, well, there goes my free lawyer. And it wasn't until Dave Freedom called me and says, hey, are you going to the POEC? And I'm like, yeah, I have no choice. I've been subpoenaed. And he's like, do you have a lawyer? And I'm like, no. And he offered him Jessica and Rebecca and Jane. And I was like, ooh, Jane. I don't know about Jane. Like, I was just like
Jane.
I like Jane, but she can be kind of abrasive a little bit. And Rebecca talked to me, and we had a lovely conversation. And but that was my first opinion of her. Maybe it was just I caught her on an off podcast or something. And she's an amazing woman. And she saved my ass. I mean, like, really. But she has a big heart. And the first impressions that I got of her were not the right impressions. So I'm glad I followed up and went a little further.
Yeah, and we got her. We loved her as soon as she popped up on the POEC. The first time she stood up and started to speak for you, we're like, who's this? And we looked into it and we watched. We're like, keep going. And then when she got into the whole Trudeau's picking the guy, and I'm like, yeah, keep going. Like, I like what I'm hearing. I don't know if it's going to change anything, but we sure enjoyed watching that part of it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, after the POEC, I get a message from Chris going, your lawyer made you look like an ass, get rid of her, and she's embarrassing you, and blah, blah. I was like, she's like, get rid of Jane Scarf. And I'm like, yeah, no. And then you start calling her names and stuff. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep her just to piss you off.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we enjoyed her. And do you know what she's doing now? Is you still working with her at all or anything like that? Are you still in contact with her?
No, they asked me to go on a tour with them. And Rebecca's done the tour across Canada. She's done very well. But she's so busy. So we haven't had any time to be together, which is sad because I do hold a very special place in my heart for both of them. And Janice and Dave, both fantastic people. The amount of free time they gave me, I mean, I couldn't ask for any better. I'm going to let them go ride off into the sunset to wherever they need to be and what they need to do. But I couldn't join them. It's unfortunate. because trucks cost money, and
Mhm.
I had enough downtime. So it's survival.
Right.
I had to make sure that my husband's truck didn't get taken, and that's our priority right
Right.
now.
Right. Well, let me be
Yeah,
bold enough to ask you to let Jane know that I would love to meet her. I don't know if we'll do a full interview or something, but I'd love to meet her. A
I
paralegal,
can send her a
paralegal.
message.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Right?
give her my email or something.
Well,
Um,
she was in Canada Day in Ottawa.
was she?
Yeah,
Oh, I
she
missed that.
was. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I missed that part. So now the POS is wrapped up. You gave your testimony, and by the way, thank you for doing that testimony. And the part about the abuse was, I think, the most touching part, and I think that's a part that a lot of us did not know, and we did not even consider that you had abuse, and then you also got your trigger going through that thing. So thank you for sharing that with us, and I think that helped a lot of people understand a lot more on what you were going through that night. So I do appreciate that. And then the testimony ends and you're done. So you kind of feel free. Sorry about your dog because that happened just before that.
Yeah, it
But
did.
now you're, yeah, now you're back out and the POC's done, your subpoena's done. You had your little moment and you told your story. And thank you for all that. Now that that's over, the POEC is over. I think the next thing you end up doing is you get involved in some politics. So now you start looking at the Ontario Party, or is that happening
Well,
before or after?
no. Actually, before I left Ottawa, um, Jasmine, who was a fan of all of us from Convoy, is asking me to make peace with Chris Barber,
Okay.
and I'm like, you know, I really got what I had wanted from Chris and Tamara and everyone at the POEC. The story was told accurately for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I wanted. And it took, me getting upset and being vocal about it for it to happen. And so I went and I met up with my husband and Chris, and I apologized to Chris for being over the top for some emails that now are apparently emails that were sent to Tamara, but it's such a twisted story. But
Okay.
I apologize to Chris. We hug, we have coffee, we even do a unity video. And I'm satisfied. He's supposed to post the video. He never does. And
Mm.
I go home. On the way home, apparently there are lawyers arguing about me. And I'm like, what the heck did I do? And, Chris is trying to tell me what's going on. And I'm like, what the heck? And now I hear that I'm going to be charged
Perjury?
on perjury. Yeah, impeached. I wasn't president.
Yeah, you're prime minister all of a sudden. I wish, right? Let's recall that one.
Oh, no, you don't. I swear to God, man, things would be slashed and on track. I mean, I am a budget queen. So
Yeah,
no, everybody be like, wow, it hurts. And I'd be like, 2 years, man, 2 years, make it hurt and we'll be all out.
that's right. We'll fix it.
We'll fix it. Give me 2 years and we'll fix it. And you know
Mhm.
what? Every MP should only get the salary of their area resident. So if that's a $40,000 base, that's all that MP gets. Guess what? If the salary of that group of people goes up, so does their income. It's called incentive,
There you go.
right?
You got
Yeah.
some good idea
None of
there.
these big friggin' wages, right? But anyways, so now Chris is telling me that I'm thinking perjury, that's jail time, man. No. I'm not going to jail for Keith Wilson.
Mhm.
No. So I'm on the phone with Jane. Jane's talking to me. Rebecca's talking to me. We're like freaking out. And they're like, yeah, something about the airplanes. I'm like, look in my testimony. That text is right there. So we're drafting letters, we're sending it off behind the scenes. Nobody gets to see this, but we're fixing it. And Chris is telling me to let it go and stop posting it online. And I'm like, I am not going to jail for
Right.
Keith Wilson,
Right.
period. So then I'm on the way home. I think I'm home probably 2 or 3 days. I'm still like what do I do with our truck? Kevin's truck is out of work. We can't cross border. Our carrier won't let us go. We're paying on this truck to sit in the laneway, insurance and plates and yada, yada. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with the truck. And I get a call that Tom Marazzo is going to run for the Ontario Party.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and there's an election coming up. Oh, I thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm not a politician. They don't want me.
That's the best type, by the way.
Well, they still didn't want me, apparently. Only 2.1 or 2.8% or something like that is the vote I got. But I literally was like, this might be the only way I can help Chris, Tamara, Pat, and the rest, by getting my foot in the door to let people know they're not the people that they claim they are.
Mm.
And I talked with Tom about this idea. And I was like, what do you think? If we can get in, we can let people know that that's not what happened. What you're being sold and told is a story. And it's not accurate. And I thought, well, geez, if that's the way I can help, that's the way I'll help.
Cool.
And I took every last penny I had to run for office to save the two. Well, not just them. There's quite a few. But I took every penny I had in savings to run for office. And I mean, I lost the bed. It also cost me being kicked totally away from Freedom Court, which really, really stung, because it was not for me. It was for them.
Right. I'm sorry about that part. And that's still ongoing, or is that kind of settled and finalized now?
Well, I mean, we are definitely not together. And the things that have happened behind the scenes, which we really don't need to get into.
No. I just want to know if you're happy with where it's at now, and you kind of leave it where that leave old dogs lie. Or
I'm kind of over it with the Freedom Court and the people within it. Okay. I'm over it because they just won't see it the way the unrepresented see it. And that's because they're not in our shoes. So until they're in our shoes and feel the way we do, they'll never understand what it's like to be unrepresented. So.
Right. Yeah. It's a tough one for everybody involved, right? I think you can agree with that. Represented, unrepresented, being a lawyer, just being an activist. It was tough for a lot of people in this situation.
Right. And I'm far from an activist. I'm not an activist.
Not you. I just mean other people involved were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have some cool questions to go through, if you don't mind, because you definitely got this chat really excited about asking you about a bunch of stuff. But all those stunt dummy, his first one. Now, stunt dummy is an awesome man. So what he did was he was masked and he was believing that narrative. But he's a trucker. He deals with tow trucks and he's in that lifestyle. But he believed the mainstream media, and what he did was he went there to prove to himself the mainstream media was telling the truth, because he hired other people saying they're lying. So he actually believed them, and he went there to go see it. Lo and behold, he found out the truth. He recorded a bunch of stuff, and then he woke up during this thing. And ever since,
is he the one that parked in Ottawa? That brought his truck into Ottawa and then went, you know what? I'm not doing it, and joined us.
I don't know. I don't know if he brought his truck or not, but now that you asked that, maybe he can answer that question, and then we'll get it back. So there you go, Stunt. There's a question for you. Were you the one that brought the truck? And let us know. But what he wanted to know is, can he get a honk? There you go, Stunt. You got a honk from Brigitte herself. Thank you so much. That just made his day. I'm sure he's really excited on his side. Thank you for that. And then Ryan was saying loved this lady during the EMA, so the POEC. Good to see she's still kicking it and going strong. So you got some supporters out there that enjoyed you, the person. Maybe not necessarily what happened, but you, the person. They enjoyed you. And that's
I didn't enjoy stuff that happened either. So, I mean, if anybody thought I got real good kicks out of being at odds with anybody, no, I
No.
didn't. And I truly loved CRISPR. And as I said, he saved me. So to feel betrayed, that wasn't enjoyable. It
No.
wasn't enjoyable. And
No,
it's
that would
still
be
not.
yeah, that would hurt the soul, because you guys at one point were all pointing in the same direction. And I think
Yeah.
Peter oh yes, so Stunt is saying yes, that was him. So maybe you did see him. There you go, Stunt. You got a honk honk and a woot, and he's saying he's excited. Look at that, Stunt. He's got a monster truck now, and he's still going to put flags on it, and he's doing some stuff. This guy still makes a lot of noise. I don't think the convoy ever ended. It just kind of looks different now.
It does.
But I think that's one of the questions that are coming up here. Peter wants to just make basically a statement here, basically thanking you. While lots of folks were dancing for attention and donations during the Freedom Convoy, Brigitte was busy saving the soul and sanity of Canada. #hold the line. So I think some people recognize what your efforts were there. Yeah, you weren't there for the charity. You didn't even ask for charity to get home. We just heard that part of your story. So thank you. So Peter,
and I mean, like,
that.
I was given a total of like $300 in Ottawa. 100 was from Tamara, 100 was from Cress, because they realized I had no money when I went to Ottawa. We hadn't been paid for the last load. And one was from Miss Emma. She, that was $300 that I was given over 3 weeks. It doesn't go very far.
No.
Right. And I mean, Troy Flatt even. Stuff. Yeah. And well, actually, it was funny because there was food provided everywhere. Me, I didn't know it was free.
You didn't know it was free, so you didn't eat it? Oh, Brigitte. Oh, my. Well,
and I was like, oh my God, that looks so good. I was looking at like shawarmas and ribs being on. I was like, man, I wish I could afford that right now, but I just can't. So I only got $100, or I only got 100. Yeah, because they came, Chris gave, and then Tamara, and then and I was like, man, I really can't afford that. So no, that's probably like $30. I can't do it. And I just keep walking. I had one hot dog that one guy pulled me aside and said, here's a hot dog. And he gave me a hot dog. I got a cookie in a bag. I left it for everybody else.
Well, I think we need to organize a barbecue for you where it's free and you can have whatever you want at that barbecue, shawarma, hot dogs, whatever. Yeah, at least you'll know it's free. So Brigitte Barbecue is free for Brigitte, and we'll make sure that she enjoys that one. We at least owe you that much. Oh my gosh, she was right. Now Stunt has some actual good questions here now. So I guess now we've opened the door with Stunt. He's got some questions here for you.
Okay.
Do you feel like the convoy was a success?
On many levels, yes. I mean, we pushed far enough that mandates were starting to drop. Now we know that Justin Trudeau was just vindictive and waited till August to drop the trucker mandate. And we know that he was in contact with Biden, who waited till this May to drop the mandates, even though in February they voted 220 to 210. Yeah. So, I mean, they were just being vindictive at that point. But I think it did. And I think it gave us the sense of, I mean, there's so many good people. We've got people doing schools, trying to get homeschooling. We got people doing community gardens. We've got wow, all this stuff has opened up that we didn't know existed. We've got barter exchange. We've got, I mean, yeah, maybe not the success we wanted at the time, but it's called delayed gratification. And I think we got it. We're still working on some.
Yeah, well, a whole bunch of us met each other, and there's a whole bunch of us still working on things. This show is a result of your efforts as well, bringing people together. And unity has been a thing for since the convoy started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you've opened up a lot of doors and got people to look at this a different way. And I love how you have different perspectives, and you actually understand that you may have a perspective and I may have a perspective, but at least we had the common cause of we want our Canada back, and we don't like what this Canada is doing right now. So I appreciate that part of it.
And
Now, Stan,
perspectives are great because sometimes they can change the way you look at something, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't mean you're right or I'm right or you're wrong or I'm wrong. It just means we see it a different way. And as long as we can be respectful towards each other while disagreeing on that point, we're great. We're good. And we need to so learn how to do that, because I see us and I am still part, and I'm angry at the vaccinated that want to force me, and they call me all sorts of names. And yeah, I'm mad at them when they do that, but I have to try and figure out how to bridge that gap and find what peeves us all off. If we can find that one little seed in this haystack of what they hate, what we
Mhm.
hate, we can be unstoppable. And that's what we need to look for. What is that one seed?
And as we know, the seeds create grass, so the grassroots. So the seed will happen, and it'll be a grassroots effort. It won't be a top-down anything. It'll have to come from the ground up. And I think we're still searching for that, and those seeds might have been planted, and they might start to be popping out soon. We'll keep an eye on that. Because I do think that there's a trend happening, the gender stuff, all this stuff. It's starting to swing the other way now. So maybe it took a little while for this freedom thing to start to come back, but it also took a while to wake a lot of people up. And Paula, can you bring that stunt comment back up about what he got from it? So there you go, thank you. So stunt here, I think this is exactly what a lot of people ended up doing because of you. He feels like it was a success as well, because now he knows everything they're up to, and it's a whole lot more than mandates. So for him, this woke him up. And before this, he would have been another one of those people that would have believed a lot of the narrative. So if you didn't
Yeah.
get that conversation with Trudeau, what you ended up doing was created a conversation with Canada and started to wake them up, because they got to see him stand in the House and say Nazi flags and this and that, but they also saw nothing else after that. They also heard about all the name calling. And then in the POEC, he said, I didn't say anything about the vaccinated.
Oh my gosh, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. You should have seen me screaming at the TV. I'm
I was
like,
there.
I was losing it. I
I
was
was,
glad I wasn't there. I would have been brought out by our CMP for sure. I am like,
my gosh.
yeah. I went.
Yeah.
I'm like screaming, like spit was flying. I'm like, give me that TV. It's gotta go. It's gotta go out the house right now. I'm like, liar.
Lie.
I swear to God, the cop that lives across the street that won't talk to me anymore since convoy. He's probably like, is she all right over there? Because like I think she's lost it. Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was bad. Like I went to the Dragon's Den. Like I was in the Lion's Den. I was with the Purple Hairs. Okay. I was sitting there with my trucker hat, my jacket and stuff. And I got to sit right in the middle of that group. The other side is where there was a lot more supporters there. So the right side where you couldn't see them on camera, that's where a lot of the supporters were. And then the left side, where I was sitting, because I wanted to be right in the middle of the camera. This side, other than me, they were silent when he said that. But the other side, holy smokes, the loudest collective gasp I've heard in my entire life. Like you could feel the air moving from one side of the room to their side, because they just sucked it all in. And it was like, how could you say that? Like, of all the things you're going to say, is that's like literally what started this. And he denied it. But
right.
yeah, I'm glad you had a moment too with the rest of Canada on that one. And
I even put that in my testimony, right? If you look at one of the video footages I put in, it's where he's going, and there'll be consequences for your actions. And I put literally a bar on the top and a bar on the bottom that said convoy was a consequence of your actions.
Right.
right? So, you know what? For every action, there is an equal and greater reaction. And
Yep.
your action is what created Convoy.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that we have been this patient all along as well. And I think Stunt has a couple questions related to that. And what I'm going to do is I'm trying to get this wrapped up for you because I do want you to get back to your evening.
I'm just going to go to bed after this, so I'm good.
Okay. I might steal a few more minutes to then because I do want to get.
Fine.
Thank you. And then Stunt is now asking the other side. Do you have any regrets?
I do have regrets.
Taking this interview? I hope not.
No. Actually, you've been so much fun.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I can be my quirky self, so it's okay. I don't have to be like
Ellen loved it, by the way. I'm getting so many comments about how amazing your laugh is from Ellen. She loves that. So I have to get a couple more for her. Yeah. There's one.
My regrets, not keeping people safe. That is a huge regret. Because I really, I don't know how to explain it, but when you're a mom, you're kind of like, these are my children, and I am responsible for these children. And not like the people of Canada were my children, but they came from an idea that I put forward with others to support us and support our cries and our helps and our needs. And I was personally affected, unlike some of the other organizers or leaders. And that's why I was standing up. And I thought, I've asked these people, I've asked them, how can I not protect them? And I just couldn't. I felt so horrible. That was my biggest regret. The other one is for not being more direct with some of the organizers that thought they were going to take this over. And I'm trying to walk so lightly on this, I swear to God. I should have been more forceful and said, no, that's not happening. I'm sorry. Truckers speak for truckers. And that's the way it is. If you're not a trucker, sit down, because some of the answers that were given on truck questions were completely wrong. And they could have been solved with simple guidebooks being shown, simple answers, following regulations, showing regulations. So I was very disappointed that I allowed a suit to once again speak for me as a trucker, because that's what I have in the CTA. That's what I have in the ATA, FMCSA. Omar talks like he knows all about transportation, has probably never stood beside a truck. So that was my biggest regret, was not putting my foot down and say, truckers speak for truckers.
Okay. And so hindsight's 2020, lessons are learned. And that actually segues us into Stunt's next question. This guy, I think, is really probing your brain. Maybe he should meet you for coffee at some point, because I think he's got more questions for you. And Stunt, that might happen if you want to go and drive and see Brigitte. You might be able to have coffee. He's an awesome guy.
Where is he?
Ottawa.
Oh, well, I'm headed to Cornwall, so.
Hey, Stunt, head to Cornwall. I could put you in contact if you really want to connect with him. I can make that happen. It won't take 4 months to find you. Okay, you know where you are now. The POEC should have called me, because I didn't take long to find you.
Right? It was like, hey, there she is. Actually, it's funny because I had my Twitter since 2014, and I didn't start using it until a couple of months ago.
You're waiting for me to catch up to you. I guess that's what's going on here.
Yeah. Oh, BJ Dichter pushed me into using Tweaker. So.
Okay. Cool. Then Stunt was now saying, here's a good question. Do you think the convoy could ever be topped with a larger peaceful protest or event, or peaceful event?
You know what?
I think he's looking for some hints here.
There is definitely a plan within me. Before I'm willing to release it, I think we can. But it's going to take unison. It's going to take a lot of things to be finished and over with, so we see the outcomes. But I think I may have formulated an idea to beat them at their own game, and I think it'll work.
Well, we can certainly talk about that one a little bit later. Let's let that formulation brew a bit more.
Yeah, I just want to, make sure I got it good.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about it too, and Stunt's been thinking about it. There's a whole bunch of people thinking about ways to bring this back in a way that there won't be as successful next time. And maybe the message will be out there.
We will never do a convoy like we did before. I just want to make that clear. I don't think that's capable. I just don't think so, because the risk is too high, and too many know what the risk is of that. So there are people that will totally back away from that now. So I think, and here's the other thing. We all know this. Why repeat the same actions and expect different results? I mean, I know I'm saying it a little bit different, but why do the same thing? If we do the same thing, they know what we're going to do. If we are not predictable, they don't know anything, and they don't know how to deal with it. And that's what Convoy was, unpredictable. We need to be unpredictable.
Well, let's keep that conversation going, maybe offline. Cease has been watching me, I think, since Jeremy was on the show. I have Jeremy McKenzie on. So I'm not sure if I have lots of new viewers or not. But yeah, I think we should continue that conversation, because I don't think a lot of Canadians are satisfied, because the government has continued to do some pretty crazy stuff since then.
Don't worry about the RCMP. They can't even spell my name right. I don't know who that Brigitte Belton girl is that they have in their file, but she is not me. She spells her name wrong. So can they come and get her and take her out of my house? Because I don't know who's in their file.
She has all the debts, right? All the credit debt is with her, not you.
Oh, there we go. That's a great way to look at it.
Well, the banks want to play games. There you go. That Brigitte has the credit card. Talk to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a couple more here. So Island Jason has asked, is that Colin Big Bear? Does that mean anything to you? Colin Big Bear?
No, Colin, I think it's Valden. Colin Big Bear, yeah. He's Salmon Island of the... Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Colin. I know exactly what group you're with. He's a native gentleman, and Colin and I have had the opportunity to meet. He's a wonderful, beautiful soul. I don't think he'd harm a fly if, unless it bit him in the face or something. But no, it was Colin Valden that had a convoy going in BC, and I had no idea. But Barracuda Barbie was, had TikToks on it, and I was like, well, hey, he needs to join us. So I reached out to him, and he was all for it. So he came to Ottawa. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he did his crew in BC. Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually have somebody who just paid $2 in the super chat to have another honk honk out of you. What do you say? Can you help me out?
Oh, anybody sleeping around me? I'm going to quick.
There you go. That's quick one. If it was $20, you would have done a little bit longer, right? This is the way this works.
I don't know. You know what? Truckers are pretty ornery people. And this is what I said about that one guy in that video, Mr. Blue Jacket. And he's screaming at that truck driver, you know nothing. And I'm like, well, you kind of know nothing, because we're federally regulated, not through the province. So, piss off. But I'm thinking, holy crap. If that would have been me, what would have been my reaction? I'm thinking, man, my kickbox would have been flying out, and I would have had shit and gear coming out, flying out. Like, buddy wouldn't have talked to me that way.
Great.
And maybe that's because I'm also in an industry that's all male, and if I don't stand up to these guys, I get walked on. So, any one of them come up to me and we've got words, and I'm like, bring it. Like, whatever, right? You want to take out the little old lady, go ahead. But I know there's probably 4 other truckers here that are going to back me up. It's just crazy what we lived through and the experiences. So seeing Mr. Blue Jacket screaming at that guy, I'm thinking, did he just like calmly walk in front of his truck, open the door, get in and close it? I'm like, I don't know who that guy is, but he is my flipping hero. He is my hero. Yeah, I couldn't have done it. My husband's like, oh man, I'm so glad. Like, he goes, things would have been flying. I'm like, right. He's like, yeah, I'm glad you weren't there.
You're a fan of Blue Jackets then?
No, I'm a fan of the guy that walked away from Blue Jacket. Okay. The truck driver that walked away from Blue Jacket while he was losing his ever-loving mind on a truck driver. So it's that truck driver. I'm sorry, man. You have my heart. I am so grateful for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Now we're going to go. It doesn't look like we have any questions left, but we have some statements people want to make. Jan from Facebook says, thank you so much. The Freedom Convoy saved us. That's her perspective. And I think a lot of people echo that one as well.
You guys saved me just as much as I saved you guys. Like,
well, we're glad we're having this conversation. Oh, I think you believe in divine intervention. You believe that, we're on paths. We have our missions. Yeah. And I thank you for yours. And I don't think yours is done yet. So you keep it up. Island Jason has another one here. Brigitte has made a definite impact on millions of Canadians. She's a true Canadian legend. Island, he knows what he's talking about. He's been around for a while. He's got his finger on the pulse. He believes this. So
I really don't think people know who I am. Just the quiet old lady in the background,
Well, we didn't forget about you.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Yeah. No, we love you, Brigitte, quite a bit. The POEC thing, I think, melted a lot of hearts. We got to learn you there. That was a big moment for me, at least. And
that was weird. I learned what memes were. Like, that was weird. I was like, memes. I still call them memes.
See? Yeah. Well, I was just about to say you created one. Bring it on, Brigitte. Bring it on, Brigitte. That would be a meme.
Well, it was like, they're like, I am seeing these like words going on in my face, and I'm like, what is that? Why are people doing that, right? And I'm seeing all this stuff, and they're like, oh my God, you got more than one. And I'm like, I got what are they talking about? Why is this happening? And they're like, no, it's a good thing. And I'm like, okay. And then I literally sat there and went, okay, guys, can you stop sharing that? Because like, I'm sick of hearing my own voice. I'm like, won't that woman ever shut up?
You got to try and be me for a week, because I got to listen to my interviews after to do clips and other things. I'm tired of me already. I tell you that.
Isn't it weird hearing your own voice?
It is. And what's interesting about these interviews is it's like Fight Club. Like, once you do it a second time, it's very different, because I'm involved in the conversation. So I am listening to you, so don't get this wrong. But I don't pick up everything, because I'm also thinking about questions and trying to get stuff ready for you. So I actually get to watch this a second time, and I find I pick up a lot more info. But I'm tired of this guy that's talking all the time. So I appreciate that as well. I do. Motown, who's one of my best buds in Calgary, never met the guy, just met through Twitter, and he's turned into a really good friend. And he wants to let you know that he loves this conversation, this interview, and he wants to listen to it all night. Brigitte, you're a hero to him, and he wants to thank you. Thank you for this and all that you went through, plus making my Thursday. So from Calgary, Motown sending you some love, because you touched people all over this country. And Motown is a really, really good soul.
Thank you so much. And, I do love the hospitality out there when I do get a chance to go out west.
Well, if you're in Breton, I'll hook you up. We got septic. Like, you can park your truck. You can stay for a while. We'll hook you up if you're ever at the play.
Oh, honey, it's snowing. I'm leaving. There's white fluff. Gotta go.
All right. So we'll make sure that we'll get you here before the winter. And Tammy wants to let you know she's from Ontario. Thank you, Brigitte. Big heart from her as well. And she's got a really special story. If you're on the road and you want to listen to some of my stuff, Tammy has an interview. So that's a really good one to check out. And if you go through some of Randy's there, so I think you might actually find his story pretty good as well. And Jeremy's there, and some others are there. So for the road, maybe you'll check out my stuff.
Always listen to podcasts. Always listening to, well, I have to support my friend BJ. So, it's we support each other, right? We're friends. And so I listen to his podcast, and cracks me up sometimes, I swear to God. And I listen to his, I listen to like tons of podcasts, and there's so many available. And I'm kind of looking forward to not having Canadian media available.
That's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here. You'll enjoy our Wednesday episode, which is our Great Canadian Relay, where we talk to people from Nova Scotia, BC, and then up to the north and everywhere in between. So it's news for Canadians by Canadians. We're just dropping the whole middleman altogether. So you might like that.
Great.
Yeah, and tell BJ to return my messages. So he's returned a couple, but not enough to get him on the show. So if he does want to get on the show,
very busy.
Yeah,
I know
he's made that clear. He's made that clear.
Yeah.
but we can book. We can book ahead.
I have time. Yeah, I will. I'll send him a copy of this. And sometimes some of us need to see what the not environment, but what it's
sure.
Yeah.
What's the platform? What's my format? And what's my style? All that matters.
Yeah. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, my style is I just want to talk to you. I don't really want to get into the nitty gritty or anything else that might be going on, because that's not really my place. What I want to learn is the person. And my mission is to talk to people mainly around the POEC witness stuff, because I'm looking for more information, because I'm not satisfied. Yeah. I did 400 hours of the POEC. I want more, because I don't think we have the full story yet. So if BJ wants to come on, I'm happy to have him. It won't be adversarial, because I don't have a mission that way. I just want to talk to the person and get to know him.
Have you reached out to Chad Eros?
No, I don't know that name, but you can hook me up.
He wasn't at the POEC, but he was invited, and he wrote, I think him and Chris Garrett both wrote letters, explanations and stuff to the POEC. If I remember correctly, I think they both did. One may have for sure. But I didn't think they flew them all the way out from wherever the Chad is from. But yeah, I mean, you can follow me, and they're there. They'll pop up. Okay. I'll send a copy of this anyway to my friends, and let them look at. Hey, look, I'm yapping again. If you're just interested,
you're yapping, you're laughing, you're honking, you're having a good time. So right. Yeah, this is what I like to do. It's a good time. There's only a couple left, and then you'll be out of here. You can go have that sleep of yours. Okay. Sherry Lynn from Facebook says, "What a great talk. Love Brigitte. True patriot. Saint.
Thank you.
Prayer. Heart. Clap. Keep trucking with a heart." And by the way, everybody, that prayer icon, that's not a prayer. It's a high five. If you actually look at the name, it's high five. But everybody uses that as a prayer, so we'll keep it that way. Thank you, Sherilyn. Yeah, you got support.
And I wore my freedom shirt for you guys, right?
Freedom, and freedom. Three freedoms there.
Oh, there's like 5. And it's funny because I bought this shirt probably 3 years ago in the US, and it was just happened to be an Independence Day shirt. And I'm like, it's red and white. There's no blue.
Yeah.
It's mine. Yeah. So.
Oh, cool. Now I want one.
Well,
next time you find one of those, pick one up for me.
I'll pick up a bunch and bring them back. There we go.
There we go. And we'll make that Brigitte meme, and we'll make a meme out of it, and we'll make you famous again. All right.
Well, and I have something special for I'll probably tell it right here, I guess. You'll be the one with the breaking news. There were 1,010 sweaters printed for Convoy. Okay.
1,000.
1,996 were distributed. I have 6 that I'm still collecting signatures of original Convoy participants. I don't know what will ever happen of those, so I don't know. But there has been so much request to have the 10-7 sweaters again, so people could have a memorial of it. And I have redone them.
Nice.
Original print. It is all authentic. The only difference is it will never be available in black again.
Okay.
And you can contact me once I get home this weekend. I'll know exactly the details and pricing, but you can contact me if you really want a 10-7 Freedom Convoy sweater. They will be redone.
Well, Island Jason has already put in the chat. Those are priceless. So the answer is going to be yes. When those are ready, let me know. I'll put a blast out on the Twitter so people can know
Yeah,
about it.
there'll be sweaters. They're ordered. They're on their way. There's a
Nice.
few different colors available, but none are black. Navy blue, green, and red, I believe. No, white and red. Navy blue, white and red, of course. Um, and 10-7 sweaters, t-shirts, and racerbacks are all available. And the price is $60 for the sweaters, I believe, plus shipping. And $2 from each one of those, whether it's a sweater, a racerback, whatever, will go to unrepresented truckers like Clayton and Cass. That money will go straight to them. So I'm
Thank you,
including
Bridget.
that in the price. I needed to do something for the unrepresented truckers, and this is what I can give back because that was my design.
Well done. Well, I think there's going to be quite a few sales in this chat right now. I'll pick one up.
Perfect.
We'll put it on the set so people can see it from time to time. Yeah, we'll support that for sure. And good job on that.
Great, thank you.
No
I
problem.
appreciate
So
it.
we have a few more, but they're all awesome comments. 100% Patriot from Steve Calvet from Facebook. A lot of love coming from Facebook. Matt says, you'll always be a hero, Bridget. Thank you. So Matt's really going to remember you for sure. Eleanor is saying, you're doing the best follow-up to the POC, Jason, and it's a godsend for us Canadians. Thank you, Eleanor. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to talk to a whole bunch of people to get the rest of the story. And tomorrow I have Chris Deering and Maggie Hope Ron on. So they were a couple of people that got a little battered during the closing of this convoy thing.
Send my love to Maggie. Send my love to
will.
Maggie. I've seen her videos and I'm just like, really? Like, really? That there's somebody, come on. Somebody sent a bomb threat to your, oh my gosh,
No, it wasn't
my
a
heart
threat.
goes.
It was there. It was there. It's
It
not just a
was
threat.
there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So my heart like totally goes out for her and her family. Please send all my best wishes. I'm praying for her and her safety. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally had, because of an argument over Chris Barber, someone, and I mean, it was just literally, I know who you are. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think you do, but that's okay. Yeah, leave Chris alone. And the next thing I know, my Blue airline is taken off and destroyed my airlines, and I had to replace it. And it was a dangerous situation, all because people want to get in the middle of an argument that's not theirs, you know.
Right. Put their nose in there.
Yeah, it's like, gosh, some people can be very crazy, but it is what it is.
Yeah. There's a huge trend on crazy lately. It's interesting to watch. So I got one more comment from Tammy for you, and then I'll let you wrap this up. Could not have been more proud to be Canadian, she says. I knew we were still together in that moment, more of us than them. And I think she's right. There's a silent majority. You know, we were supporting you on the side of the highway, and I don't think we went anywhere. I think we just got stronger, especially after the POEC. We kind of understand a little bit more what you had to go through and others. And we thank you even more for that. Now, Bridget, I want to give you a couple of moments here to kind of say whatever you want to Canada. We'll wrap up and let you get to rest, because thank you for your time.
I just want to say thank you for every person that had the strength to get up off the couch or to sit at your computers and for hours every day share us out and support us and love us. And I understand things are hard and some of you don't understand what's happened behind the scenes, and that's okay. Just remember, we are all still that one person that was hurting, that now we are 2, now we are 5, now we are 50, now we are 20 million, right? Whatever it is, whatever that number is.
And
I
growing
believe
globally.
We are 40% of the Canadian population, and our power as that 40% is bigger than BLM. It's bigger than the Pride movement. And there is a petition. I was fighting that they wanted pandemic days as a holiday. And I was like, yeah, no, we want freedom days as a national holiday from from the 17th to the 20th. So,
Okay.
but if we can do that, that's great. I mean, just let's just be there for each other, regardless if we agree or disagree. Let's just be there together, and let's kind of look past the issues that people have, and just let them deal with their issues. It's a friend of mine's truck had MYOB on it, and I kept asking him what it was, and he said, "Mind your own business."
And you're like, tell me what it means.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got it. And he goes, yeah, what's inside this truck is inside this truck. It's none of your business. What's outside, none of your business either. You don't own it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look,
Yeah.
Brigitte, I think the only correction I'm going to make on this entire interview is you're not done. Okay? You're not done. You weren't done then. You're not done now. You got lots more to go. So thank you so much for that. We love you.
Thank you so much.
And we will hear from you again at some point, okay?
All righty.
I'm looking for that sweater. It's going to feel like a big warm hug out of you. So I'm going to order one as soon as I can.
Right. And like I said, when I get back there, I should have more information on when they're arriving. And again, they'll be coming in blue, white, and red. So not
Absolutely.
black. Let's leave those original.
I'm pretty comfortable with your logistics skills. I'm pretty sure you'll deliver this to us. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Brigitte. You take care.
Thank you so much.
No more Hong Kong because there's a bunch of people around, but we'll do our own Hong Kong.
And they're sleeping.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. What a lovely lady. What a lovely lady. Okay. Sorry it ran a little bit late, but I don't think you guys really mind. Kind of had a lot more to go over with her. We didn't want to go digging too deep. We'll let her talk about what she wants to talk about because this isn't a hit you show. This is a get to know you show because this is about unity and understanding people. It's not about causing more division. There's enough people that are monopolizing that kind of industry of causing division. They have CBC in their title and CTV in their title and global. So if that's the stuff you're looking for, there's plenty out there. But if you're looking for straight up conversations with the people, get to know the people, there's a lot more going on than just what you saw on the POEC or what you saw on the streams. She's a real woman. She's got a trucker's life. She enjoys it. And she gave us a bunch of Hong Kongs. So thank you, Brigitte. And thank you to your friends as well. So you're going to be passing this around to your friends. Thank you for supporting Brigitte during those tough times. And she is absolutely not done. She is just getting started, I think. This battle is still going because we still don't have our freedom yet. And we still don't have the full answers. And we never know. They might do this again. So I think this should continue. And Stunt, I will put you in contact with her. She seems to be a bit of a fan. So we'll go ahead and do that. So thank you all very much for joining me on this extended one. It was a good time, and I really, really enjoyed her conversation. And Ellen, when you mentioned that you loved her laugh, I had to get a few more in there for you. So look, let me know what you like, and I'll do what I can. So you all take care. Thank you, Island Jason. Thank you, Stunt Dummy. I think Perry was in there. Ellen was definitely in there. I saw a whole bunch of you. Peter was in there. Thank you for those comments, Peter. She appreciates that. Matt was in there. And there's a whole bunch more. And thank you for the super chats. I do appreciate that. Yeah, all that helps. So thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your night. You know what I feel about you. I love you all. And God bless.